Meeting called to order, please. Please join me in the prayers. Dear God, today as this session opens, we pray that your presence will be before us and everyone who serves in the decision-making process of our city. We pray for direction which will lead our city to be strong and unified. May we continue the legacy of our founders. May we be granted this day the wisdom to make decisions which will be for the good of our city. We also pray for your special blessing on all those who are working to transform our city and make it a better place to live and work. Amen. Please join me in salute to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mr. Clerk, roll call, please.
Council Moon.
Here.
Council Robinson.
Here.
Council Rourke.
Here.
Council Scott.
Here.
Council Yem.
Here.
Mayor Chow.
Here.
Council Drinkwater.
Here.
Council Gitchia.
Here.
Council Janess.
Here.
Council Leahy.
Here.
Council Mercier.
Here.
It's 11 present.
Any memorials tonight? Any moment of silence? Hearing none, we now start. I want to welcome everyone to the City Council chamber tonight and welcome everyone who's watching us from home. We start the meeting with the mayor's business on the agenda. 2.1, need a motion to accept the communication remote Zoom participation by Councilor Rourke, second by Councilor Nguyen. All in favor say aye, opposed say no. The ayes have it. Motion is carried. The next item under the mayor's business is one of my favorite for this evening. It's a presentation by the Middlesex Community College on the Fulbright Scholars delegation to Cambodia. And we were honored to listen to some of the experiences in the mayor's reception room earlier. Sound like it was a great trip, but don't let that blind you that how difficult it is for the community college and the local public school teachers to qualify for this program. And this program has done some amazing work, and we're honored as a Cambodian American citizen myself. We're very honored to have Middlesex Community College and local public school system teachers went to Cambodia and established that relationship. I'd now like to welcome the president of Middlesex Community College, Mr. Phil Sesson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Pleasure to be with all of you this evening. I just want to mention to all of you that we are celebrating this particular Fulbright Hays grant during Anapeasy Week. The Asian American, Native American, Pacific Islander serving institutions. President Biden just sent out a proclamation celebrating all of those institutions across the nation that serve our Asian students, and that certainly includes Middlesex Community College. We're pleased to be with you here this evening to talk about over a year's full of work to be able to bring Lowell Public School faculty and our own faculty together to be able to travel to Cambodia and to impact their curriculum and develop projects. It's my honor to really introduce the two women who made this happen at Middlesex Community College, Professor Carrie Ann Gamache and Professor Lara Kradenova. I'll turn the program over to them.
Hi. So we're here to report on our experience traveling to Cambodia in July of 2023 as part of Fulbright Hays grant that MCC received. And I should mention that MCC is among a very small handful of community colleges that have ever received such an award. And on top of that, it's not our first Fulbright, it's our fourth Fulbright. And the scope of this project was to learn about the impact of access to arts, education, and health services on community and individual healing. In order to do it, we met with a lot of community organizers. We visited public and private schools, visited a lot of NGOs, artistic communities. We traveled extensively by boat, tuk-tuk, plane, bus through 4 provinces of Cambodia: Mandulkiri, Phnom Penh, Siem Reap, and Battambang. As you can see, we are a group of very diverse people who come from different backgrounds, teaching different disciplines, and at different educational levels. And such diversity contributed to amazing, effective, and enthusiastic collective knowledge acquisition and knowledge sharing. We built some amazing connections in Cambodia that we hope will serve very well our participants and their students. We visited Mandulkiri Indigenous Peoples Association for Development, had workshops with United Nations Population Fund, visited Cambodian Children's Fund that provides wraparound services to underprivileged students and their families in Phnom Penh. Got educational resources and research support from the Documentation Center of Cambodia, the Center for Khmer Studies, and Bapana Audiovisual Center. We also got an overview of educational goals for the next 10 years from the Ministry of Education, Youth, and Sports. And of course, we visited amazing museums and iconic cultural sites, including national museums in Siem Reap and Phnom Penh.
Professor, if I could interrupt you real quick. I can hear you fine, Professor, but I think the public might not hear you well. Could you speak closer to the microphone?
Okay.
Or maybe lift it up
But
closer.
I'm done, and Carrie will speak closer to the mic.
Thanks, Lara. Yeah, I'm going to share some of the fun highlights of our trip, but I want to echo what Lara said and just share that it was such an amazing opportunity to lead this group of passionate, creative educators from Lowell to represent our city on this to this beautiful, exquisite, amazing country. It's such a privilege. So I just wanted to mention that we were able to build on existing partnerships that had been created by the City of Lowell and also at MCC. In 2020, 2 archaeologists from the University of Hawaii came and gave a series of community lectures on excavations at Angkor Wat. Well, there we are at Angkor Wat, and we were able to meet with Dr. P. Paul Heng and Dr. Miriam Stark, both of whom came to Lowell to give talks. So that was a treat. We were also there when some of the repatriated art had arrived in Cambodia, so we were able to see that at the National Museum. Very exciting. But I think I speak for our group when I say that one of the most impactful places that we visited was the rural region, the province of Mandulkiri on the Vietnam border. It's home to one of Cambodia's many indigenous groups, the Bunang people, and we met with Hang Roerin, who you can see here. She is part of a larger network of indigenous rights activists who are working against deforestation in the region, against land grabs and land concessions. So it was such an amazing experience to go to her home and be welcomed there. We also made some cool connections while we were in the country. We found some great LGBTQ organizations that we were able to visit. It almost seemed like someone would lead us to another connection, introduce us to a friend, another partner, and it just kept growing, this network. And finally, I just want to share that we were all pretty starstruck to meet Cambodia's first female celebrity chef, Chef Nak. We went to her home for the day. We all became completely obsessed with Cambodian food so while we were there. So this was such a treat to cook with her and learn about the connections and intersections of food, community, history, just so much knowledge we were able to gather. And lastly, I just want to take a moment to thank President Phil Sisson for his support of this grant, and also Mayor Chow, who's just been so encouraging and kind to us throughout this whole process. So thank you so much for leading our city. Thank you.
So I just want to thank you all for this opportunity to really see and showcase the work that's done by the amazing faculty, both at Lowell Public Schools and at Middlesex Community College. One last shameless plug before I leave. We are very delighted that we have some additional ARPA funds to really bring the second Lowell Asian American Film Festival to the city, October 20th through 22nd. Here you'll see the films. The entire film festival is free. We hope you will join us, and thank you so much for honoring us with an opportunity to talk about the Fulbright Grace Grant. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor.
Collaborating on the Cambodian delegation trip is also the Lowell Public School System, and in the chamber this evening is the Superintendent, Mr. Liam Skinner. Welcome to the meeting. Any comments, questions from the Councillor? Councillor Yam?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I want to thank President Phil Sisson, the Middlesex Community College, for an outstanding program. The question I have would be, do you think in the future we would have a Cambodian student from university in Cambodia to also visit the MCC and the City of Lowell as part of the Fulbright Scholarship, sir?
Thank you so much for your question. Yeah, in fact, we already have meetings planned with President Sisson to talk about some of these possibilities for exchanges. A lot of the nonprofits and especially the schools that we visited were really interested in teacher exchanges as well as student exchanges. We're hoping to look into even some fundraising possibilities to support some of the schools, especially in rural areas that we were able to visit. So we have a lot of exciting projects in the works. Yes.
That sounds exciting, and this is when Mr. Mayor and I will file a motion for Sister City for Phnom Penh teachers to be able to bring some of the smartest student faculties in Cambodia to come to the United States for educational exchange, similar to the Calamari, Greece, that has some exchange program, and I'm hoping that some of these bright student faculties who are poor may not have money to afford to come to out of the country, but because of this exchange that allow them to come to the United States and to learn about the democracies and all of that, and then bring back to Cambodia. So I'm hoping. And I thank you for the program, and Middlesex Community College and Lowell Public School for partnership and bringing some of these brightest students in Cambodia to come and to study here in the U.S. They are very bright, but their family are poor. They can't afford. But if we could somehow help them to come to the U.S. and be able to learn and then go back and then to help their country. I appreciate what you do. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions by any other councillor? Hearing none, again, I want to thank Mr. President, the professors, and Lowell Public School for your ongoing commitment to make educational, historical, and cultural connection with Cambodia. Thank you for all you do.
Thank you.
Need a motion to accept the presentation placed on file by Councillor Yam, second by Councillor Ruok. All in favor say aye, opposed say no. The ayes have it. Motion is carried. We now move on to the next section on the agenda, which is the City Clerk. 3.1, need a motion to accept and place on file the minutes of Rules Subcommittee September 12th, City Council regular meeting September 12th, City Council special meeting September 19th by Councillor Leahy, second by Councillor Mercier. All in favor say aye, opposed say no. The ayes have it. Motion is carried. We now will go to the category 4, communication from City Manager. Councillor Yam.
Mr. Mayor, I suspend the rule and move motion response E out of order because we have the community are here, speakers from the community to speak on the motion responsive.
Okay. Motion by Councillor Yam to suspend the rule on alphabet E, second by Councillor Nguyen to take it out of order. Councillor Yam, Councillor Nguyen. Okay, motion by Councillor Nguyen. What number again, Councillor? 11.6,
11.6, Mr. Mayor.
11.6 is a motion by Councillor Nguyen, request City Council proclaim and observe the National Hispanic Heritage Month, September 15 to October 15. So the motions to bundle these two, take them out of order. Let's have the motion made by Councillor Yam, second by Councillor Nguyen for both. Mr. Clerk, is the registered speaker for item motion response E?
Marta Gregory.
Hi, good evening. Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, all city councilors. I come here because I would like to say that as Councilor Paul Jim, I have a great idea, but I'm a candidate city council District 4 this year. I'm very passionate about democracy, equity, and inclusion, and I think he has a good idea, and I'm flattered because I'm a Latino, but I think we have to think about the other culture and the other nationality. And I think that it just take the acre for only the Latino is not fair for the other community. It's not fair, so we divide the other community, we divide also the residents. Not only in the acres, we only Latino, we also, they have Cambodian, they have Greek, they have Irish, they have African, they have African American, so it's a diverse community. So why not keep it that way? If we just giving a name for Latino, so it's going to separate, it's going to divide the city, to divide the town. I don't think it's correct. I don't think it's fair. And if you want to give a name, because they celebrate the Latins festival there, what I suggested, and I have an idea, why not every year to do it in different districts? For instance, maybe next year for Latin festival could also be in downtown Lowell, which is, you bring the people together instead of to separate. How about for a name for the acres? Maybe it could be acres community for all. So you involve everything, you include everybody. So not exclude, because if we do that, if the motion passes, it's gonna be a lot of problems, a lot of confusion, and people, and also teenagers and young people, is gonna be very confusing. So it's gonna take ownership. So, and like sometimes right now, sometimes when we as Spanish people talking with someone and say, go back to your country, why you speaking English? That is gonna happen. If we name and we dedicate the acre community to only Latino, because it's not Latino only there. Eliva is there. We are diversity. We need to keep Lowell as a diversity city and community. Thank you so much.
Betsy Toro St. Ange.
Good evening. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, city officials. My name is Betsy Toro St. Ange, and I am here to speak on the motion response that Mr. Paul Radagem, Councilor Jem, has put through. So I am actually very grateful, and I know that several members in our community, and I'm going to put this up, I'm sorry, various leaders in our community are okay, are happy with having a sector in the acre named, you know, could be Latino Plaza, Latino Square, Latino Lane. That's not a problem at all, and I like it for the fact that we have a community that it's always been underrepresented, and it makes us happy, you know, but we should take into consideration not only the opinion of the Latinos, of course, and having, you know, we just heard the testimony of Mrs. Amara Gregory. We should take also into consideration the opinions of the other communities. There's a lot of ethnic groups in the acre. We have Asian Americans, we have Greeks, we have French Canadians. It's like a soup, a mixed soup that we have in the acre of different people from different nationalities. So what we would like is to pause it, you know, for now, and we can probably have a voting process going through, maybe an online voting process, or maybe a survey, keep doing some community input to see if everybody feels happy with this decision, because we don't want other communities to feel uncomfortable or feel like they're being excluded. That's my opinion, and that's the opinion of various leaders that I spoke to in this community. But other than that, I feel happy, they feel happy, but we need to make sure that everybody else feels comfortable with this decision, because it'll be a decision that involves a lot more people. Thank you.
Mr. Clerk, any more speaker?
None of that item, Mr.
Councilor Yam?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you for the motion response, and thanks for the speaker. It's a representative of District 7 with a mix of both Latino, Asian, and the rest of the population. The suggestion and the comment that I received, and that's the reason I filed the motion, and then it leave up to the community if they want to have a certain things dedicated to remember, to recognize the Latino community contribution to the city of Lowell. Like the motion response said, the Colombian community have raised funds in order to erect a statue at the city hall. The effort similar to other nationality that have come to the city of Lowell and erect a certain monument to remembrance all their contribution and their ancestry who helped build the city of Lowell. And this is just my motion, and then it's up to the community, and I understand that Latino community is diverse as the Asian community, so whenever the community want to do, it's up to the community to speak. And in the motion response, I want to thank the city for drafting a really excellent response, and in that saying that the city will maybe hold a listening session for all the Latino community to give their input of what they think should and shouldn't be done. So it leave it up to the community. Thank you.
Councilor Nguyen?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thanks to the city, particularly Melissa DeRoche's executive assistant to the managers for put together the report. I know that Councilor Jam recognized that the acre predominantly, not to say that there's no other ethnicity living in the acre, but he recognized the majority of, Hispanic living in the acre, and that his motion response also suggests as well that, if we go forward or move forward on this, is that maybe a listening session to hear input from everyone in the acres to see whether or not there's a need to be a name called Hispanic community or Hispanic town similar to the Lower Highland, that is Cambodian town. So I thank Council Jam for recognizing it, and I respectfully say that the listening session will help whether or not this will work or not. Thank you.
Councilor Robinson.
Thank you. I too would like to thank Councilor Yem for bringing this forward. As my colleague Councilor Noon just mentioned, I think I've brought a motion forward about experience law in the past. I think this is exactly what Councilor Noon just mentioned. I think this, well, potential opportunity. It's basically building a stage to display yet another culture that makes up Lowell, our city. It's Cambodia Town. It's a big draw to the city, and it tells a story of part of our people of the community. I think the opportunity to do the same with the Hispanic community is existing in this motion. I also agree. I think it's early stages, step one, and then I applaud him for bringing it forward. I think listening sessions and community input is going to be key to drive this. And through you to DPD, do we know where that sculpture is? Because I know that's been kicked around within the Colombian community for quite some time. Do you know the status? Are they still looking to install eventually? And is there anything that the city's doing to help kind of get that process underway?
Through the Assistant City Manager to the DPD Director.
Thank you. Yes, DPD has met with representatives of the Colombian community who have been working to finalize the design and raise funds, essentially. So a location on the JFK Plaza has been identified as where that sculpture will be once they're able to fully fundraise for it. And so we've walked them through the process of what that would be once they've kind of reached the point when they're ready to actually do the installation. So it's my understanding it's designed, and the community has been essentially working towards finalizing fundraising, similar to all of the other monuments that have been put out. The city kind of walks people through the process, but ultimately those have been privately funded.
Thank you very much. And I just hope we can do some community input sessions about this, because again, I think people might not fully be in support of this yet until they see exactly what it can be. And again, it's not to take from any other group, it's just to highlight yet another group that we have that's a member of the community. Thank you.
Councilor Murcia.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I know that the heart and the intention of Councilor Yem's motion, he is always in the right place. He always have the greatest intention in mind, not to hurt anybody, but to make things right for people. But on the second hand, how very, very gracious of Betsy and Amada to come to the podium and say, gee, we appreciate it, but we're not the only ones that came here. It took a lot to say that, because people I want it, and yet they want it for everyone. That is remarkable, and I want to thank them personally. I always looked at the acre like the Plymouth Rock of Lowell. The reason I say this is because every nationality seems to have come into the city and settled right in Lowell like Plymouth Rock. I know the Greeks came and they got a church, and then the Irish came and they dug out the canals and they made a St. Patrick's Church, and then when they kind of made it, they moved out and branched out to the Highlands, to Pawtucketville, to different sections of the city. So it's quite a remarkable place, that acre. I'm very proud to have a sticker on my car that says I'm supporting the acre, because I was brought up in a portion of the acre, right of the acre, in a place called Little Canada. So yeah, everybody from one time or another settled right into the acre or thereabouts. So this is a good motion, and I'm so proud of everybody involved. There's no greed here, and I'm very honored to see what you said. We can make everybody happy. Thank you.
Thank you. No other comments or questions on this motion response. Thank you all for coming to speak. We now will go on to the next item that was bundled on this. Is a motion. Mr. Clerk, please call the registered speaker, please, on 11.6.
Diego Leonardo.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Diego Leonardo. I'm the Executive Director of Latinx Community Center for Empowerment. Dear Councilman, Councilwoman, and also staff represented here and some of the visitors. I stand here before you today to shed light into the culture that celebrates the significance of our diverse community. So Hispanic Heritage Month, this is an annual observance which sparks September 15th to October 15th to pay tribute to the invaluable contributions and rich history of the Hispanic and Latino Americans in the United States. Taking a dive into our recent history, Hispanic Heritage Month was first established in 1968 as a Hispanic Heritage Week by President Lyndon B. Johnson. It was expanded to a month-long celebration by President Ronald Reagan in 1988. September 15 holds a special significance, making the anniversary of Independence Day for Costa Rica, El Salvador, Guatemala, Honduras, and Nicaragua, and also Mexico's Independence Day. It's celebrated on September 16th. That follows along with Chile celebrating their Independence Day on September 18th. This month serves as a powerful reminder of the profound influence and lasting makings of the Hispanic and Latino communities that have made in shaping our nation, and especially our city. From arts and cultures to politics and economics, the contributions are woven into the fabric of the American society. Visionaries like Cesar Chavez, who championed the right of all agricultural workers, Dolores Huerta, a tireless advocate for labor and civic rights, Roberto Clemente, a legendary Puerto Rican baseball player who not only excelled on the field but was also a dedicated humanitarian, Sonia Sotomayor, as the first Hispanic Supreme Court justice, bringing a unique perspective to the highest court in the land. Furthermore, let us not forget about the artistic brilliance of the individuals like Lin-Manuel Miranda, the creator of the Broadway musicals Hamilton and In the Heights, and Gabriel Garcia Marquez, whose works have captivated readers worldwide. These luminaries are just a fraction of the mosaic talent that defines the Hispanic and Latino experiences. In our very own Lowell community, we are fortunate to be enriched with a vibrant Hispanic and Latino presence. Our influence is palpable in our cuisine, our music, and the vitality of our neighborhoods, as we were just talking about. From the hardworking families that have been established roots here for generations to those who have been recently arrived seeking new opportunities, each person contributes to the diverse tapestry that makes Lowell a remarkable place to call home. As we celebrate the Hispanic Heritage Month, let us recommit ourselves to fostering an inclusive environment where all voices are heard and all cultures are valued. By recognizing the profound impact of Hispanic and Latino Americans, we affirm the shared values that bring us together as a community. I'd like to invite each member of this esteemed council for our fellow citizens to take part in the festivities and events commemorating Hispanic Heritage Month. And together, let's honor the past, celebrate the present, and build a future where diversity is celebrated at the strength that it truly is. Thank you.
Juan Breton.
Thank you, Mayor Chow and council members. My name is Juan Breton. I'm the board president at the Latinx Community Center for Empowerment. LCC empowers our Latino community through education, workforce participation, and civic engagement, aiming to drive socioeconomic development. LCCE serves as a pillar of support, offering resources and educational programs. One of our main projects is the Lowell Latinx Archive. This initiative seeks to increase visibility to our Latino community through all our history, photography, and community events. In Lowell, we can find over 50 businesses owned by Latinos. As you walk around, you can find the restaurants, the barber shops, the beauty salons, the supermarkets, bodegas. Last year, a group of volunteer community members formed a diverse committee to create a landmark Hispanic Heritage Month festival. We recognize that Lowell has a sizable Hispanic community, comprising 18% of our city's population, which is over 18,000 people. This committee has representation from Colombia, Dominican Republic, Guatemala, Puerto Rico, and Brazil, showcasing our vibrant community. Today, we'll be, again, inviting all city councils. Hopefully, we'll see some of you dancing on our dance floor on Saturday. But we also want to thank the city for the support, for the continued support, case office as well. And then I'm sharing some more details. Thank you very much.
Zarius German.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and City Council. My name is Zarius German George, and I am the Board Vice President of LCC. I am here tonight on behalf of the Lowell Hispanic and Latinx Fest Planning Committee to extend a warm invitation to those in this chamber and everyone listening or watching at home to our second Hispanic Heritage Month celebration this Saturday, September 30th from 12 p.m. to 8 p.m. at the North Common Park. The Lowell Hispanic and Latinx Fest will be a celebration of our community's rich cultural heritage. This year's festival will feature diversity in music, dance, and food, showcasing what makes our Latinx community so unique. The Hispanic and Latinx Fest is a way to celebrate our differences and unify our strengths. This is an opportunity to show through our food, dance and culture, and music how a large community can come together and celebrate as one. Together, we can continue making this event a resounding success and demonstrate our commitment to celebrate the rich cultures of Latinos who live in this city. Thank you, and I hope to see you all there on Saturday.
Any other speaker, Mr. Clerk?
No, that's it.
Councilor Nguyen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. On behalf of my colleague and the City of Lowell, thanks the administration and the manager, Golden, for support for this kind of project to make Lowell a unique place where we bring people together and recognize them, appreciate them. And this council have done it every year when either Hispanic or Asian Heritage Month. We've done it, and we will continue to do that. I'm just honored to be a part of it. Thank you.
Any other comments? Councilor Leahy.
Thank you. I just want to say it sounds like it's going to be an exciting weekend. I hope we can all make it. And Ms. George did a great job. She was one of the best interns we had at the office. So, thank you.
No other Councilor Yam?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I'm looking forward to the celebration. Last year I attended. It was great, a lot of music and dancings, and my dancing was not that great, salsas, but I tried it anyway, but it was great. But also, just before the event, the Little Crews will have the cleanup of the North Common Park, and I also invite the resident at home and everyone who would like to help clean the park before the celebration to also join us as well. I'm looking forward to the second years of the celebration. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Hearing none, just want to thank all the speakers for coming to speak tonight. The Hispanics community has made tremendous contribution to the city of Lowell. We are very fortunate to have the diversity in the city, and to have the Hispanic community has made so many important events in history of Lowell. We thank you for all you do, and the events every single year, it's always very, very lively. It's already been shown by your T-shirt here tonight. Very, very bright color, right? And I think if I wear one of those T-shirts, I would have looked, just as cool as you guys are. So thank you for being here tonight. With that said, we'll take a vote on this motion. All in favor, say aye. Opposed, say no. The ayes have it. Motion is carried. No other motion to suspend the rule. We'll now return to where we left off on the agenda. The motion response on alphabet A. This is on COA bus. Councilor Janess and Councilor Scott. Who would like to go first? Councilor Janess.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First, I'd like to thank the administration for the response on this and for reaching out to LRTA and having the conversation about how they can help. Mentions the bus driver shortage that LRTA is experiencing, which is impacting really their ability to provide service across the board here, not just a special thing like this. So I guess the only question I have is, does the Career Center have programming in order to kind of get people up to speed with the licensure that they would need to be a commercial bus driver? If not, is that something that they can explore adding? It seems like there's certainly a need in the community, and the Career Center may be a way to help us meet that need as a community.
Mr. Machado.
I believe we, Mr. Mayor, thank you. The senior center, there is a bus driver currently on staff. Ms. Gagnon, who runs the Career Center, is here, but I don't believe that they work on Sundays, but we do have a bus driver that is on staff.
Yeah, sure. I appreciate that, and I'm glad for that. And I do note that, there has been an advertisement for this driver, for an additional driver, and that's going to be reposted, and that's great. But more kind of going off the LRTA aspect of this, where they're mentioning their bus driver shortage, which has come up before when we've talked about other things. So I'm just wondering if the Career Center has programming to help people achieve the licensure that they would need in order to be a bus driver for LRTA, and if not, if that's some kind of programming that we can look at expanding over there, just to kind of meet the needs of both the job seekers and the LRTA who's looking for bus drivers to be able to hire.
Mr. Machado.
We can look into some CDL training. We can also reach out to Mass Hire to see what we have, what they have available for us to help us out with that situation.
That'd be great. I think that's a big need, and it's not going anywhere. And so if we can pair people up who are looking for work with that kind of steady job, I think there's benefits there for the community. Thank you.
Agreed.
We'll go to the makers of the motion first. Councilor Scott.
Yep, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I also appreciate that this position is going to be reposted for the part-time driver, but the LRTA part did stand out to me as well. And not just as far as the LRTA, you're hearing the same thing through the school department, with parents posting about it all over the city about the bus driver shortage. So it's definitely an area for us to really probably grab onto with the workforce development. So thank you.
Councilor Gishia.
Thank you, Mayor Chow. And through you to the manager, there may be another avenue to take. If you went to the DPW where they have CDL licenses, or the parks or water or something, they may be able to try to get them that 7D piece, and people would do it for overtime. So I think you may have an opportunity to use somebody in a multi-purpose facet if you just went out and asked them, maybe that you'll get takers to look at it for weekend overtime shifts.
Councilor Robinson.
Thank you. Exactly what my colleague said. If we can find a way to do this in-house, as opposed to, it's kind of bottlenecked at a state-approved training facility currently right now. So, I mean, if we have a need like that in the community, it only kind of makes sense to grab some of our experienced drivers and see if we can get them as trainers. Thanks.
No other comments or questions. We now go to the next motion response, the alphabet B. This is on the COA weekends. Councilor Murcia.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to thank everyone who put this report together, Kim Gagnon. I am satisfied with the response. If we observe the culture and the customs of our ethnic diverse population in Lowell, such as our Cambodian, Portuguese, Spanish, Polish, etc., they all respect and revere and show us their high regard and the greatest respect and appreciation towards our seniors, or their seniors. I want that same respect shown to our elderly, our seniors as well. And I know that you probably feel that I'm speaking about myself being a 110-year-old bat, but I'm speaking for our seniors, and I'm not speaking about myself. But if it means keeping the senior center open during the weekend for a decent meal for our seniors, that's what our seniors deserve. So thank you for the response, and I'm glad that the administration is doing everything in their power to keep it open. So thank you so much.
Councilor Janess?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As Councilor Mercier said, thank you for this report, and I appreciate the efforts being put forth to make sure the senior center stays up and running on the weekends. It's very important to our population. I was just curious, do we have data on the number of seniors that we serve on the average weekend? How many folks are coming in for breakfast? How many folks are coming in from lunch every week?
Mr. Machado?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We do have data. I don't know the number off the top of my head, but Kim Gagnon's here.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Assistant Manager. Thank you, Council. We have actually just recently, so the weekend numbers do tend to vary. A lot of it depends on weather, what's on the meal. But in order to make it easier and to have a number and to not have food waste, we've actually started taking account during the week for people to sign up for who's coming on the weekend.
Okay. And are we talking 15 people, 30 people? I'm just really curious as to the scale.
I would say the average of the last 3 weekends, we've probably had 30, I would say 40 on Saturday, 30 on Sunday. I think that's a fair estimate.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that.
Councilor Nguyen?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was told by someone who worked there on the weekend, approximately between 30 to 50 other coming in here.
Councilor Yam?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you for the report. The last portion of the report is very interesting, and you mentioned you take orders before the weekend, who's going to be want to have the meal on the weekend. I think the important thing is beyond just the food is the fellowship with their own friends and family, friends at the center. I think that's the most important part of the seniors who are coming to the center. I think that's a really a good approach in to kind of short-term resolution to the problem of lacking of staff or drivers for the weekend. I think that's a great direction to go. Thank you.
Councilor Rourke?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And if Ms. Gagnon could pass along those numbers on the weekends to Councilor Leahy, because I do remember Councilor Leahy volunteering to cook for our seniors. So as soon as you can do that, the better off we'll be. Thank you.
Is he Serve Safe certified?
Thank you for your volunteerism, Councilor Leahy. No other comments or questions? Thank you, Ms. Gagnon, for being here. Well, now we'll go to the next motion response, the alphabet C. This is on parking by various councilors, Councilor Mercier, Councilor Rourke, Councilor Yam, and by myself. We'll just start from my left to my right. Councilor Mercier.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. With all due respect, I appreciate the response, but I don't appreciate the answer. Sometimes you want to hear something and you just don't hear it. I'm concerned about, well, how is this response to my motion any different than someone driving a car with someone else's handicap placard, combat veterans versus handicap placard? Yet the handicapped person gets one and the combat veteran doesn't, because the reason was, well, someone may be using their car and they're not handicapped. You know, they're not a veteran or they're not a combat veteran, but they could not be handicapped either, but they're still using the. So I don't know the difference. I don't understand the difference. It's all right to initiate a handicap placard to someone, but not a special pass for a combat veteran. I don't get the difference. And the difference is well, someone may use the veteran's car and say they're a veteran when they're not. Someone can use your car and say they're handicapped and they're not. So what's the difference there? I don't get it. So that response doesn't go with me. I don't get it. No disrespect, Terry Dallin.
None taken. Don't worry about
Let me just introduce you real quick. We do have the Director of Parking here, Mr. Terry Ryan. But I think the multiple councilors put a motion on this. They might make similar comments or different ones. Why don't we go to have the councilor speak first? And then we'll have Mr. Ryan respond afterward. Councilor Rook.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I'm not going to apologize for my words, but in the 10 years of being a councilor, this is close to maybe the most ridiculous response that I have received on a motion. You had two councilors submit a motion, and then you had 2 months later, you had two different councilors submit pretty much the same exact motion. And to hear that, because you can't tell the person driving the vehicle who they are, it's not applicable. Veterans are some of the most admirable people, maybe the most admirable people that serve their country, and they come home and and most 99% of the time they are serving within a city or within a school, or just their service does not end the day they leave the military. And this has come from different people that have reached out. I know to Councilor Mercer and to the mayor and to Councilor Yem and I. So this just didn't come out of thin air. This response is it's lacking, to say the least. I would request that it goes back to the manager's office to be done correctly, and to come back with a way to do it. I mean, just go back going online to the Registry of Motor Vehicles, Purple Heart, combat wounded, right? It's easily to see on a license plate. Massachusetts veteran, Valor Awards, Congressional Medal of Honor. I mean, and to say that someone would take that car to save $3 downtown for 2 hours is laughable at best. So I would put that into the motion to send back to the city manager's office for a different response.
Second.
Before, motion by Councilor Rourke, second by Councilor Mercier. Before I take a vote on that, let's have a complete this discussion on motion response first. I wonder if Councilor Yam, do you have anything to add on the motion response?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I'm also very disappointed in the response. Before the message, you said DMV issue a plate that say veteran. You have to prove that you serve in any branch of the government of the military, and after they satisfy that, and then the registry motor vehicle issue a plate. That should be good enough. Like Councilor Mercier said, who drive the car? It's not. It could be a family member that do the errand for the veteran who are disabled, unable to go, and similar to the handicap placard of the driver that has the handicap placard in their car. That family members drive that we should honor that, especially the veteran who have sacrificed everything to serve our country without a thought. When it's called upon them, they left their family, they left school to serve our country. And fortunately, some of them return even with broken limbs, mentally, physically, and we should at least do something, to appreciate the sacrifice that these veterans have done for our country and as state. So I support the motion by Councilor Rourke to send it back, to come back with a better response in supporting our veteran. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Before I open to the other councilors, I know that the maker of the motions has made some comments and questions, and the parking director is here. I'd like the parking director, Mr. Terry Ryan, to respond first before we open up to the floor. Yeah. Mr. Ryan?
Thank you. I certainly don't mean any disrespect to the veterans. I just looked at this a little differently. My concern was if somebody did have a child that went to ULowell and there was a car that could be used every day, or somebody that taught downtown and they could use this car every day. So there were some concerns about that. I certainly don't want my enforcement officers interrogating people, whether they're veterans or not, if they don't have a veteran plate. If somebody says, I am a veteran, I just looked at that aspect. I also looked at the aspect that if somebody was a veteran and currently parks in our parking garages, they would now possibly park on the street all day. I didn't know if we were looking at a 2-hour parking agreement or an all-day parking agreement. So I was wondering if this could be brought back to a subcommittee level and I could have some discussions about that. I certainly can offer free parking to veterans probably tomorrow if they have a veteran's plate. But my other question would be, would we look at just Lowell citizens? Or would we consider all Massachusetts plates? Or would we want to discuss any veteran plate from any state in the country? So I do have some questions, but right off the bat, I was just very concerned about anybody misrepresenting the use of the plate, and I didn't want to do that. Some of the suggestions I wanted to kick around was, could we add more signage to the city and make every 10th spot downtown a veteran spot and put a sign up? Something like that. Just as a trial or something to try to work this out. I know towns like Quincy and Newburyport are looking at this, and their hesitation, I think, is also the enforcement of it. They are looking at doing it, and they have the same concerns that I have, and we just have to work out those concerns. And so I'm willing to talk, get a better understanding about the will of the council. That may be a short conversation, and that could be an interesting conversation. But whatever is the will of the council, I certainly will work my hardest to implement.
Mr. Machado?
As the wish of the council, we'll take this back and find a way to get this done.
Councilor Scott?
Thank you. I also would just like to express my disappointment in the response that was received. It just doesn't show the level of gratitude that we should have for our veterans in this response. A simple Google search just sitting here showed that Salem, Beverly, New Bedford, Haverhill have implemented similar policies. So I think a little bit more could have gone into researching this before bringing the response forward. Thank you.
Okay. Councilor Gisho, you all set? We have a motion on the floor to return to take a look this by the Park Director and the City Manager's office again. But I do appreciate Mr. Ryan here to be here to speak on the matter, and you offer a couple good solutions just on the spot right there to look at maybe some more signage around the city, small things like that. But I know there's going to be ongoing discussion with the City Manager's office to work this out somehow. So thank you for being here tonight. Councilor Rook motion on the floor, second by Councilor Mercier. All in favor say aye, opposed say no. The ayes have it. Motion is carried. The next motion response is the alphabet D. This is on the status of computers in police vehicles and precincts. Councilor Gisho.
Thank you, Mayor Chow. Through you to the manager, Machado, or to the superintendent, whichever. I just have a couple of questions. I thank you for the response, Superintendent Huden. Really, there's nothing new in here. It's basically the same thing we heard when I asked the questions. So we don't know, the Larimore system's not working, and we have two that we're doing a trial in. Do you know when we would actually have them all up and running, whether you go with the new system, the Larimore, or whichever way?
I don't have a dead fast date.
A roundabout date?
No.
Because my concern is when you write in here, we don't know, do we have a rough cost on what it would cost?
Yes.
And that number.
I'm almost afraid to say it. We do have an estimate, again, to outfit approximately 38 of our cruisers. We have a one-time cost for the actual hardware, and then there may be some recurring costs. So if you total those two things together, you're looking in the vicinity of $185,000.
So it's pennies. It's not that much money.
Okay.
We we have a $550 million budget, and we have people out on the road who are, to me, and again, you're going to disagree because that's your stance, but when we pull someone out of an area and we have 2 backups and no one's in the area, to me, it's not the level of service that each district deserves. But we can agree to disagree on that. We should be able to find this money very simply in the contingency. This shouldn't even be like a question. It should be, okay, we need this much money, move it over, get it done. We have plenty of money we can find to do this. So the money piece to me is not even questionable because of the risk and reward piece to the community. As we take people out of sections that are further away from the 18 stations that are here, we're risking something else. So like South Lowell, and when I review these things, I just think that there's a risk here when we pull somebody out of a district and now we're playing checkers. We're running around. So I don't think that's a lot of money for a mistake. I mean, we have water main breaks that cost more than that. It's just the cost of government. Things happen. How soon, if this is the number, but wouldn't this have to go out for 3 quotes through you to the CFO? Or is it a state contract?
Mr. Assistant Manager to Mr. Baldwin.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Each product would be different. There are likely some of these that may be on the state contract. Most, hazard to say most, but there are a lot of hardware and software services that are on state contracts that we can procure directly. A lot of the time that's been spent to date, though, has been spent sourcing the materials, the services, and what's right for the cruisers. So we haven't been waiting to find the money. It's been a process to determine the proper hardware and software needs for the cruisers to connect in a secure way. But we are actively talking. The superintendent and I have spoke about funding sources to put this in place immediately.
My major concern is, are we looking at a product that we can actually get? Because as you start looking at this stuff, there could be an 8-week delay, a 4-month delay. I don't know. And if you have 2 of them, my concern wholeheartedly is get these things up and running, because there is a deficiency in all of those cruisers right now. And it's coming from the police that are saying this to us. And I think it's fair that they say it. It's been since April, and if this technology has been there, I don't know where the MIS person is, because they should be up here saying, okay, what's wrong with the current system that was in place, and why is it now, after all these years, cannot be secured? What is the issue, and why are we at this stage anyway? But be that as it may, you look and you say, okay, how do we get this up and running? Because I truly think that 155,000, is that what it was, somewhere in there? 85,000? We're paying overtime right now, and we're shifting people out, so there's a loss of funding at the same time, so we have to take that money from somewhere. It's coming out of somewhere. So I just think, to be, as it's written in here, fiscally responsible, I think the residents really need this up and running as soon as possible. And if there's a emergency procurement that needs to be done, I think that you could get the waiver pretty quickly because of the risk. So I'll leave the rest to the rest of the body. Thank you.
Councilor Janess.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First, thank you for the report, and really put me in a better space of exactly understanding what the challenges are here. And I will echo Councilor Gitcher's thoughts of this being something that I think is extremely important and something we should find a way to get done as soon as possible. When we're talking about funding sources, the first thing that popped into my head, and I don't know if this would be an applicable spend for it or not, would be it was either capital or budget. There was $2 million that was put in for IT spend in order to recover from the cyber incident, and this seems like a perfect fit, right? This situation exists because of the cyber situation. So it seems like that funding might be a good way to use it. I don't know whether that's appropriate, and I'm not going to tell you, Mr. CFO, how to spend your budget, but that was just where my brain thought went immediately. But you know, this is a safety thing for me. We hear public safety every single conversation we have with the public. So this really is something I'd like to see get implemented as quick as possible. And while we're talking about public safety, I just want to say thank you to Chief Udon and his team. There was an incident on Friday in my building on Market Street, which everyone heard about and, caused some great concern. But LPD did a fantastic job in responding in minutes and was able to apprehend the suspect. And I know that there are hundreds of people in my building and the buildings around me who sleep better at night knowing that person is off the streets. So thank you so much to your team for the response and the way you handled that. Couldn't have gone any better. So really made a bad situation much better for all of my neighbors, and we're all appreciative. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Councilor Nguyen?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Chief, for the report. I share the concern, but not as much. Reason being, let me say this. Chief, when officers say stop somebody, if he or she or the officers want to do the query check, the ability to do that, even with the deficiency in the system, can they still do that job?
Yes, Councilor.
How?
So our connection, if they're trying to do it, number one, they can always call the radio room and run it over their radio and get an audible answer and have a dispatcher do that for them. If they're in a cruiser and they want to do that themselves, our cruiser connection is still able to connect to CGIS, which is our gateway to run those types of checks and gives us access to the state database.
State and federal information of that individual, is that
Correct,
correct? So do they have to come to the station?
Not to do that. The only reasons they would have to come in, and again, since this came up, I've been reaching out to the officers. I want to get a true feel as to what, where we're putting in and what they're coming back to us and saying what are the problems with these cruisers and what they're able and not able to do. And a lot of them do end up coming back to some of the precincts to write reports that are more involved just because they're looking stuff up, but they do like the convenience of being able to do many reports right from their cruiser. That's what they're not able to do, is to connect through the city network into our CAD RMS system, which would be report writing for some of the more simpler reports, as well as some of the accident reports, which last year went electronic with the state. A lot of the cruisers lacked a drawing tool for all the intersections, which then gets imported into those reports. And so they would have to go back to the precincts for a lot of mundane, simple accidents. One of the things that we've been testing with this system is, can we put that drawing tool into the cruisers now with this new upgraded modem system? And in fact, we've tested that just in the past week, and it appears we're going to be able to give them that ability as well. So when I say I want to be fiscally responsible and make sure that things are going to work not just now, but we all know how rapidly technology changes, and I want this to be able to work for us for the next 5 years. So that's what that is about.
Am I correct to say this, that when officers stopping somebody, he or she can do the background check of that individual while sitting in his or her cruisers, calling the station
That's
to
correct.
find out that, right?
Yes, that's correct.
And gather those information. He or she, the only obstacle now that officers do not have is that write down that report right there and then.
Correct.
He or she can come to the station and write those reports. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions on the motion response? My understanding, Mr. Assistant City Manager, is for the manager's office to review to see how this can be funded. Is that correct, Mr. Assistant Manager?
Yes, that's correct, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, so I don't think we need to do anything tonight. I don't think we need a motion. Hopefully we get a report back from the city manager's office, see how this could be possible. Any other comments or questions on this? Mr. Machado?
We are currently working on that. We'll get that to you.
Okay, wonderful, that's great. Councilor Nguyen?
Mr. Mayor, if I may, please take one motion out of orders.
Can I speak on that
To
motion?
suspend the rule and take motion 11.8 out of orders. I have a speaker here. Thank you.
Okay, before we do that, Councilor Nguyen, Councilor Gishu still have one more comment on the current motion response.
So
Councilor Gishu.
just to back up a little bit, versus what the other counselor is saying, you know, we get to go to these neighborhood committee meetings a lot, and we talk a lot about the presence of the police in the neighborhoods. It's a very simple process. If you can fill out a report while you're at a scene, it deters them from coming back. We have this issue at the car wash on Rogers Street. Every time they leave, boom, someone comes back, and there's multiple calls. And you have this a lot where they're leaving their area to fill out reports, and now others have to come in from other areas, leaving those areas open. And that's the issue. It's not so much on, okay, someone can do a report still. I can do a report from California if I drive there, but it leaves a district open, and that's what the residents are concerned with. We don't even get the maps at the neighborhood committee meetings anymore. Every time we go to a neighborhood meeting, they say the same thing. The system's down. We can't see exactly where the robberies are, where the break-ins are, where any of that is, and that's what they're missing in these neighborhood committee meetings that they're asking for. So that's what we're saying is there is a deficiency for people to see, and they're worried that when somebody leaves the Highlands to go to another sector to write a report, or South Lowell or something like that, that's where the back central, that's what they're worried about. It's truly not okay, we've gotten away with something for so long by doing it, but now there's a response time. If I'm in the Highlands, I know where those roads are. Now you're going to pull someone from South Lowell. Now they got to figure out, okay, where are these roads? Who's this? So you're taking the person who is the quickest at getting to these roads out of the area to go fill out a report, and then we're calling other people in. And right now we're down 36 officers, is it, Superintendent? In there?
Between vacancies and officers that are out on long-term injury, it would probably be close to 40.
So we're down 40 officers and we're running around, and we're not backfilling. We're also missing right now is the backup second cruisers that used to be the floating cruisers. Those are no longer in place because of all of this. So there's not cruisers that are now able to cover someone while they move like they used to be able to do. And that's the concern. So as quick as we can get this done, I am extremely concerned about it. I just think that it is a very, very big neighborhood thing because of the backup cruises and everything else that we no longer have because of the deficiencies in the hiring process, and there's a lot more to this.
Councilor Nguyen.
Mr. Mayor, the reports also indicated that officers can do handwritten report. Do not have to leave the precinct. Do handwritten report. If he or she want to do type up report before the shift end, come back to the station. Is that how it happened? It happened in the past? Is that correct?
So we had to revert back to handwritten reports at the time that all of our computers went down. It was catastrophic. There was no way to type a report. So they had to revert back to handwritten reports. Once we were able to get our systems back up and running, we then go back to our typed reports.
Thank you.
Yeah, sure. Councilor Scott.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't want to make things sound too simplified or whatever, but I mean, obviously handwriting reports and calling the dispatch to make record reports and everything else is not the most efficient way for us to be operating. So what is the timeline that we're looking at to move forward with this system? Do we have, I know you said you don't have any idea at all, but have we located the funding source at this point?
Mr. Machado. Through Mr. Machado to Mr. Baldwin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As I indicated before, this is something that we're actively working on, and we have several funding sources identified, one of which Councilor Janess mentioned just a few moments ago. But between the available funding, this is something we will move forward with immediately. The report was just to update the council in response to the motion, but rest assured, the administration is actively remedying this issue.
Okay, thank you. I'm not sure that was totally clear in the report that this is imminent, this is happening. Everyone recognizes that this is an issue and a problem, and we're moving forward. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Thank you. So I think this is a plan in place. Thank you all for your comment. Thank you, Chief, for being here.
Thank you.
Now we will take a motion on the floor by Councilor Nguyen to suspend the rule and take motion 11.8 out of order, second by Councilor Robinson.
Mr. Mayor? Can we take another one out of order as well?
Sure.
10.5, we have a speaker.
Okay,
Registered
so
speaker.
let's just do a bundling motion instead then. Motion by Councillor Nguyen to bundle 11.8. And what's the other one? Councillor Scott?
10.5.
And 10.5, and take them out of order. Second still by Councillor Robinson. 11.8 is Councillor Nguyen requests city manager work with the election office to cover do not enter signs at schools, uses as polling places on election day to avoid discouraging anyone from going to vote. And item 10.5 is a miscellaneous. Kenneth Hawkins requests discussion with City Council regarding budget. We'll start with the motion 11.8. Mr. Clerk, do we have a registered speaker on this one?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Judith Duran.
Mr. Mayor, councilors, and management team, thank you. I'm concerned about what happened, something that happened at the Bailey School last year. I was waiting till the end of polling till the polls closed to get some numbers for a candidate. And just before the polls closed, a car came down the street and she arrived just at the time that the door was closing. And she kind of leaned out the window and said, "Can I still vote?" I said, "No, I'm sorry, the polls closed." She said, "Oh, this is the first time voting here. We used to vote at the Daly School for years and years, and then we moved to the Bailey School." And she apparently showed up, she followed her Google Maps, and she saw this big sign that says, "Do not enter," and couldn't read the fine print in the stripe in the middle that said between the hours of 6 a.m. and whatever there. So she turned around and left. And then she made a phone call to someone who said, "Yeah, it's the Bailey School, just go down there, ignore the sign." So she came and she was too late. I don't know if this is, we're not voting at the Bailey School anymore. I know we're going back to the Daly right now, but I don't know if this is an issue at any other schools that act as polling places. I know the Daly School also has those signs. Those of us that have been voting at the schools for 20 years know that we can ignore them, but a new voter or someone who hasn't voted at a school before might not know that. So I just would like to see if we could cover the signs just for voting day. And I would offer that I have a sewing machine and lots of fabric in my attic, and I'd be happy to make removable covers that could be used on a daily basis. Thank you.
Any other speaker, Mr. Clerk?
No. Sorry.
Councillor Nguyen?
Thank you, Mr. The motion speak for itself.
Okay. We now will take up the next
Mr. Mayor.
comments on that.
Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Murcia?
I know firsthand that situation. That was quite prevalent at the last election with that do not enter sign. It was confusing to a lot of people whether the place was closing or not. It was still confusing, so I welcome it to be covered if it happens at any other school. But on top of that, I wish that we could talk to the election office, Greg Pappas, and find out if there's a school program. I think if there's voting in the schools, isn't the school closed that day? If that's the case, then sometimes teachers have a workshop, and when teachers have a workshop, they tend to take, not that they're not worth it, but they take the immediate area, which I think, since it's a special day called Voting Day, I think we should back off a bit and allow our voters access to the immediate area of the school. Only because it's only for that day, and I don't want, some people are elderly and they're not handicapped, but they don't, you know, I don't want to discourage people from voting. Do you hear what I'm trying to say? If there's any teacher workshop day, try to save the immediate parking area for the voters for that day. That'd be great. Thank you.
Councillor Scott?
I'm all set, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. No other comments on the motion. We now take up the other item that was bundled, 10.5. Mr. Clerk, do you have a right to speak on this one?
Not registered. The petitioner, Kenneth Hawkins.
The petition is here.
Last. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for the City Council for allowing me to speak. I didn't come here to gore any oxen or anything like that. I came here because of what I was taught by Mayor Eleanor Sampson. She broke the glass ceiling before there was one. And her answer to everything was, politicians are elected to give honest answers and transparency to the taxpayers, whether they're appointed or elected. And that's the way I would like to approach tonight, in that attitude and that method. What really aggravates me is we have this bunch of people out there that give money to politicians and we privatize out to them. We don't save any money. We save for 2 years. I said that when they wanted to privatize the cemetery. We said it before when they wanted to privatize out the ashes and waste. They privatized the ashes and waste. 2 years down the road, we were out supposed to get free bags for leave for the rest of the time. This was the last bag handed out 2 years into the contract. Contract wasn't free. The first contract was 3 years. We got free bags for 2 years. That's what I said when they wanted to privatize out the cemetery. I said at the local level, at the state level, at the regional level, federal level, even at our universities, they have proven you only save money for 2 years. Then they're in your pocket. You have no control of that budget. They come in, they look at you, they look at us, they say, aha, taxpayers, we hit the lottery, and we pay. We got a 9% increase over 2 years. The city council took a pay cut. What happened to the people in City Hall? Did they say, oh, gee, the poor taxpayer? Those folks right here took a cut. You took a cut. No one else stepped up to the plate. We had to step up to the plate and pay an increase in taxes. So what I would like to have from here is an honest, transparent answer on how much you're saving on privatizing the cemetery and privatizing out the ashes and waste. And you will find, just like many other cities and towns across the country, like I said before, when they privatized out on the cemetery, many cities out in Arizona and places like that brought it back into the city because it was cheaper and they could control the cost. You can't control privatization. They got you by the neck and they squeeze. So I would like to have this council go back and look at what they're saving and please report back to the taxpayers what we're saving. You'll find you're not saving anything. It's costing you more and more. Every year they come in with an increase. All you have to do is look at that little budget. Eric wanted to cut some money. Where can you cut it? You don't have a contingency fund for the police department to buy a new cruiser or new equipment. You don't have a contingency fund for the fire trucks. You privatized, you sold out a contract with Methuen to fix fire trucks because you didn't have a mechanic to fix them. But come on, let's get honest. We need to do something to increase the efficiency, yes, but also the honesty. Because as Mayor Sampson said, we're elected and appointed to represent the taxpayers as a whole community, not just a certain sector or a certain donor or a friend. I appreciate your time. I know it's something people don't like to hear, but it's time for honesty and transparency because we can't just keep affording. I'm retired. I have a fixed income. Many of these people in downtown Lowell are on a fixed income also. You keep jacking the prices up. You're going to force us out. I looked at it financially. In about 5 years, I can't afford to live here. That's what you're doing with the taxes. You need to bring it into control. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hawkins. Any comments? Councilor Robinson?
Thank you. I'd like to thank the speaker. He raises some valid points. when you outsource certain areas, and I've seen it as an employee for 15 years in the city, you outsource certain functions and you lose control, internal control, and then you're at the mercy of the contractor. I mean, we've seen it, as you mentioned, ash and waste, perfect example. I mean, our increases through the roof. We had an opportunity to do a transfer station at one point in time. It didn't happen. Same thing with the cemetery, the maintenance of the cemetery. You lost all internal controls. We've had some issues repeatedly over there, and we're at the mercy of the contractor again. It's the more you can do internally. Yes, some people complain about the added expenditure, but long term, it makes sense. Other instances, absolutely not. So I think the speaker raises some valid points. We need to look for efficiencies, and as he mentioned, let's be honest about it. Is it easier to contract out in some instances? Yes. Does it make sense? Not necessarily. So I think that's some areas we need to all be mindful of. Thank you.
Councilor Scott?
Thank you. I'd also like to thank the speaker for coming and speaking, and I also agree with him. I think we've lost quite a bit of controls by outsourcing some of these jobs, and I also think that we've also taken away from local jobs for our local, residents that we would have. We saw it in the school lunch program. I think as we've seen quality issues, the trash program, we've seen service issues. So I definitely support keeping jobs, under the city. Thank you.
Councilor Kishia?
Thank you, Mayor Chow, and I agree the speaker has some really valid points. The problem with government is management. You have to have a strong management team in order to be efficient. And that's what it comes down to. It comes down to the strength of the employees also. And that's where the backbone lies when you're going to continue through, because the first thing, when they see a deficiency in management, the first thing a private contractor does is look at the numbers and they jump on it. That's what happened to Ashes and Waste. It wasn't that Ashes and Waste was anything. It was poor management and not a vision to actually lead it into the future. And it was, you got to cut bait at one point, and like the speaker said, you have the first 2 years of the honeymoon, and then it's gone because they take control. And there's the person who picks up the trash owns where it's going, and there's a whole backside to that. We no longer had a landfill to drive through. That was pretty simple. But when you look at efficiencies in government, it comes from management, middle management, and that's what I believe the manager was trying to work on when he brought in the LMI, which is the Leadership Management Institution. He's trying to bring across a strong layer in middle management that says, okay, we're not going to take certain things, because if you let the bad apple in, everybody becomes the bad apple. Because if someone gets away with it, everybody wants to get away with it. So it's the efficiencies in government that kills government and drives up cost. And we see it a lot when you go out to bid things. You see it in every piece that it costs. Why does it cost more for the same mile to pave in one city over one town? And that's where the driver is. It just comes down to the management skills. And I think as we start investing more into the employees and start seeing, you'll see the benefit on the backside, because human capital is the best investment in your future.
Any other comments or questions? Hearing none, a motion to adopt the motion and to the petition, refer to the city manager's office for report and recommendation by Councilor Leahy, second by Councilor Drinkwater. All in favor say aye, opposed say no. The ayes have it. Motion is carried. The next motion, we're going to go back to where we left off on the agenda. We're still under section 4, communication from city manager. These are the motion responses. We took up the alphabet E already. We're now on the alphabet F, motion response. This is on the executive session minute. Councilor Kishia.
Thank you, Mayor Chow. If no one has any changes to it, I'd like to make a motion to accept the minutes as proposed and release them.
Second.
Okay. Motion by Councilor Kishia, second by Councilor Nguyen. All in favor say aye. We need a roll call on this one.
Need a roll call.
Mr. Clerk, roll call, please.
Councilor Noon.
Yes.
Councilor Robinson.
Yes.
Councilor Rourke.
Yes.
Councilor Scott.
Yes.
Councilor Yem.
Yes.
Mayor Chow.
Yes.
Councilor Drinkwater.
Yes.
Counsel Getchia.
Yes.
Counsel Janess.
Yes.
Counsel Leahy.
Yes.
Counsel Mercia.
Yes.
There'll be no need for an executive session now, Mr.
Councilor Kishia.
I just want to thank the clerk and the law department for all the work that they put into these minutes. Thank you.
Councilor Mercia, did you have your hands up earlier? Yeah.
That was my question. Thank you.
Wonderful. No other discussion. We go to the next motion response, the alphabet G, elected official municipal employee stipend. Councilor Leahy.
I think I'm all set. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. No other discussion. We now go to the next motion response on the Bruce Freeman Trail. Councilor Janess.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the report and look forward to seeing the work restart on this in the spring. I know that this is something that the folks are looking forward to getting finished out, so looking forward to that. Thank you for the report, and that's it.
No other comments or response. The next motion is response on Smith Baker. Councilor Kishia.
Thank you, Mayor Chow. I think the response really speaks for itself. I think that we just need to look and see if it's feasible.
Any other discussion? Hearing none. The next motion response is on HERS rating, HERS. Councilor Janess.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I appreciate this report. It's thorough and gives some good insight into these requirements and how we're doing with them. I did have a question about the testing methodology that's mentioned in the report. Is that done on residential units as well, or is that test with the blower fan really only done with commercial? Someone I was talking to said that that's really a commercial thing and not so much residential. So I was just curious if we're actually using that methodology for residential units.
Mr. Machado.
The building commissioner's here. He can answer that question. You might just want to repeat it, though. He just entered the room.
Sure. Hello, Mr. Fuller.
Good evening.
My question was just around the testing methodology mentioned in the report with the blower fan. Someone I was speaking to said that usually doesn't get done with residential units, is mainly a commercial unit thing. So I was just curious if we're doing that for residential units or just commercial units.
Actually, it's primarily for residential units.
Okay, great. So that's good to know that that's real data. I guess some communities just rely on contractors to report the numbers. So it's great to know that we're getting real data. Very happy about that. Thank you. The one other thing that really stuck out to me with this report is the fact that we've only issued 8 occupancy permits so far in the calendar year. And that really just stunned me. And I think it really speaks to the housing shortage that we're all seeing and experiencing and talking about. If we're only producing 8 units a year, we have to barely be keeping up with what we lose to fires and, development, people changing 2 families to 1 family, that kind of thing. And really curious, what are we looking at to try and increase that production? And what do we think is really holding that down? Is it cost of goods and services to build it? Is it restrictive zoning? Is it restrictive building codes? Lack of labor? And just really curious what we think is holding us back and what we might be able to do to address that. I don't know if that's something we can talk about here, or if we should kick it over to a housing subcommittee and have that discussion there.
Okay, through Mr. Machado to Ms. Rose Bias.
Thank you,
Rose.
Thank you, Mayor. I think it's all of the above. I think that we've seen significant delays in materials being available, so that delaying sort of when projects that had been previously approved and planned, making the decision on the timing for when to move forward. I think increased construction costs in general. We have been, the land use boards have been actively approving a number of projects, and I think, we're going to see some of that development coming. But I think, you sort of touched on a lot of things. It's cost, it's timing, it's decisions to when to pull the trigger on actual construction. So I think folks from DPD would be happy to have a discussion at a subcommittee about the kinds of projects that we've seen come through the land use boards and what we've been seeing and hearing from developers about their planned timing. I think that we do have a number of really exciting projects on the horizon that will bring new housing to the city, but timing-wise, they just haven't been moving forward all that quickly. Excuse me.
All right, thank you. I will make that motion then to refer this to the Housing Subcommittee for further discussion. But I will ask, just off the cuff, if we have any estimate kind of idea as to how many additional occupancy permits you may expect to be issued between now and the end of the year. Are we talking single digits, dozens? Just curious, and if that's something we want to discuss at the Housing Subcommittee, that's fine too.
Motion by Councilor Canas to refer to the Housing Subcommittee, second by Councilor Yam. All in favor say aye, opposed say no. The ayes have it. Motion is carried. Any more discussion on this? Hearing none, we now go to the next motion response. This is on the ADU map. Councilor Robinson.
Thank you. At least we have a general idea of what we're looking at. So 6,228 locations, but that's not counting exclusively single families. It's just a ballpark starting point. So at a quarter of that, that would be 1,557. A fifth of that would be 1,245. So, I mean, realistically, there is a significant amount of properties that could be eligible potentially for the ADUs based on this map. And I appreciate at least we have a visual. Thank you.
Any other discussion on this motion response? Hearing now none, we now go to the next motion response, the alphabet L. This is on Aiken 4-way stop. Councilor Scott.
It's actually Councilor Robinson.
Councilor Robinson, got the wrong note here.
Yeah, this was my motion. I don't know why. No problem. I get it. The university hired a consultant. We sprang to action. We put in. I have a couple questions though. Why are we committing Lowell Police to do traffic detail at that location if this is a university study when we just heard from our superintendent that we're down 40 positions? But yet we're staffing something that the university requested and called for, and they have their own police?
Mr. Machado?
Ms. Baez-Rose.
Thank you. I think, and I will let Liz jump in or the chief jump in if I'm misspeaking here, but I think, ultimately there was a need to react. Once we didn't go into this with the idea that it would need police coverage. And once it became very clear that it was causing a significant backup, in order to just keep people moving through the city, LPD responded, and we thank them for that. But we recognized pretty quickly that that was not going to be sustainable, and had discussions with the university that was not a long-term solution to this, which is, I think, one of the many reasons why the decision is being made that this is not a viable solution.
I appreciate that information, and I mean, realistically, I have probably received personally 30, 40, 50 calls, complaints from residents because, again, this is backing up into Centerville, and I mean significantly far into Centerville. This isn't just something right over the VFW highway with cars waiting normal traffic day in front of Top Donut. This is going all the way up, some instances up to Hovey Park almost. And I mean, I get it, but first of all, these are older kids. These are older students that should know how to cross the road, for one. And we have to be mindful of pedestrians, don't get me wrong, but we have spots, like on Bridge Street, for example, where we have a crosswalk that just recently got painted at the foot of the Robinson School Hill that we have young kids crossing in high volumes, and they don't get the attention in a location like that with young kids. So I don't understand how we just dropped everything, threw everything we had at a location where we have pretty much adults crossing, healthy, young, intelligent adults crossing. I just don't see how we're operating here, because there's plenty of areas that we need to look at where we have young kids that might not have the wits about crossing the street in high volume numbers. And I haven't seen a detail yet. I haven't seen any kind of additional signage. I mean, we've been asking about the blinking stop signs in some instances that are solar powered or whatever it may be, and we haven't seen any of that yet, but all of a sudden there was an immediate rollout of a four-way stop coming right over the bridge near the Spinners Ballpark, and within 2 days, I'm sure the complaints started rolling in. Thank you.
Shadow?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I believe this was triggered by a pedestrian accident or two. I'll let Liz chime in if she wants to add to that, but.
This intersection was identified by UMass Lowell as a consistent safety hazard for their students. On average, one student gets hit at that intersection every year. And so they came and said, we would like to try something here. And it's my obligation to try to limit the amount or eliminate pedestrians being hit on our roads. So, putting in an all-way stop sign, maybe it was a limitation of the modeling software. There was no indication to me that this backup would happen. I did not say, oh, please back me up to the LPD immediately, because I didn't expect this. So, putting in an all-way stop in this location was an indicator to something inexpensive and immediate that we could do to try and eliminate pedestrian crashes at this intersection. It didn't work for 20% of the day. For 80% of the day, this intersection is a benefit to the pedestrians at that intersection. But because what happens is drivers get frustrated and then they start doing unsafe things, we need to remove this all-way stop. And so it's going to be removed, but I needed to do it in a safe manner. That now the students have gotten used to it, they're going to have to get unused to it. And so I put it out to UMass Lowell. They're going to continue to monitor the intersection as it comes out, so their students are still protected. We need to do something here, so we're working with UMass Lowell for a more permanent condition. I was hoping that this inexpensive and easy thing that we could do would eliminate the pedestrian crashes at this intersection. That is why we went right in right away. So thank you for supporting me in trying to make our streets safer.
Thank you for that response. And again, it's not personal against you, but this was something that immediately we saw the unintended consequences of, for one. For two, if this is connecting university property to university property over a public roadway, do they have any plans that they would like to see implemented on their own?
They are progressing some plans for some additional development in the area and have received a MassWorks grant to do some improvements on Perkins Street at Aiken Street at that intersection for a more permanent solution, which would monitor the students better. Something like what's across a pedestrian signal or a full signal there to both meter the pedestrians and the vehicles, which would make it safer for everybody. But that is a longer-term solution. We are also looking at some immediate solutions that we can try and implement in the short term, but a lot of things have to come out in a pretty short amount of time for snow removal. So anything that would go in the next would have to come out in a month or so. So we are working with them. It is university property to university property, but it is city streets.
And again, I thank you for your efforts. I know that you've been there for all pedestrians, and you do try to really figure out something, a low-cost, high-impact solution. I have a question. So the crossing over on, is that Pawtucket Boulevard by the new center, the newer center that the university's constructed? The glass building, right? University Crossing. it seems like there's not too much of an issue over there, and that's a mini highway. And so whatever they rolled out in that area seems to be working, and it doesn't really cause the log jam with traffic. So, I mean, is something along those lines considered?
Right, so they have, there's traffic signals that have all pedestrian phases on either side of University Avenue Bridge, and then they have flashing beacons along Riverside. And when there are breaks, when the students get out, there are some backups because the students just cross at the flashing beacon on Riverside. And I don't know what they have right in front of University Center other than a regular traffic signal that has a pedestrian exclusive phase. That's what I mean about metering the pedestrians. They're all allowed to go, but then the vehicle traffic is able to travel pretty freely through those intersections.
Well, thank you, and I'm glad it's on everyone's radar, and I look forward to a compromise solution that kind of addresses both issues. Thank you.
Councilor Yam?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. University of UMass Lowell South Campus on Broadway installed this flashing light for the student to cross. So maybe similar kind of solution also can be implemented there as well. So thank you.
Councilor Kishia?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Traffic Engineer Altman. I just have a quick question on the 60-day trial process, that's all. When we go out and design something and it gets put up and we realize, say at day 10 that it's not gonna work, can we pull them down at that point?
We can. September, we didn't have any problem for the first week or so that this was installed. And then the public schools went back into session and UMass Lowell went back into session. So when both of those things occurred at the same time, that's where the issue started. And then, so sometimes we wait in September because things are crazy. So I wanted, UMass Lowell asked, they requested, I had all kinds of feedback from them that they loved this thing. And they asked us to just wait a couple more weeks to leave it in to see if the September traffic would die down, and it hasn't. So if we see something immediately that's not working, we can take it down before the 60 days.
No, and I agree. It makes sense on what you're saying because you're looking for real-time data. You're not looking for just a modeling. So you're looking at maybe people were moving in, maybe other things were happening at the same time, and it just never slowed down. My question was just more or less, if there is a 60-day up and it's not working, can we pull it down beforehand?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Councilor Leahy?
So my question through you to the traffic engineer. That's a unique situation over there. You know, the way the kids are all coming out of the dorms and going across there. So it looks like the only solution with all the development that's going on over there is they have to do an overhang crosswalk. I mean, they either go under or over, but they're pushing this problem on us, and it's unfair. With all the development, all the money they're spending over there, I think we have to insist that they go over or under. There's no other solution. Up at the crossing at the Howe Bridge, a lot of the kids come up and turn the corner, so they're not crossing the intersection. So I think that's what we should be pushing for here.
It's something that we can definitely look at. We'll look at a traffic signal as well as something more extensive like a pedestrian footbridge. Sometimes people will go the shortest direction instead of going up and over, as opposed to just going across underneath. So, so we'll look at all options as we go through with them in their development scenarios.
I just think we have to insist on that because, you know, I'm over there all the time, and the difference between these kids and the kids that go to the Robinson School, they're not on their phone. You know, these kids are on their phone. They feel like they can just walk in front of cars, and that's what they do. So the kids at the Robbins School wait for the lights, and they know how to cross the street. When you get into college, you're on your phone, and you figure, I'm here, and I'm crossing, and that's the problem we're having. And I really think, this shouldn't be laid on us. It's their issue with all the development, and that's good, but they have to come up with a solution. Thank you.
Councilor Jenness.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First, I'd like to just thank Engineer Altman for being here and talking with us about this. I know it's something that, as my colleagues have mentioned, we've heard a lot about from a lot of residents in the area. But I also understand the benefits of having it there and really how it made it better for 80% of the day, as you mentioned. The unfortunate situation with almost any traffic engineering problem is you're dealing with the busiest times as the ones that cause the biggest amount of issues. And the things that make sense when the road is at its busiest often don't make sense the rest of the day, and vice versa. And that's the challenge we found ourselves in here. So I look forward to seeing what we can do to work with the university to find other options here. And I just wanted to mention that Councilor Yem mentioned the rectangular flashing beacons. Those were at that intersection and have been for a couple of years. So even with those beacons there, people were still getting hit. And that's the challenge. That's why this was the next step. I don't know what the answer is, but I know that we're going to keep working at it, and we're going to keep iterating, and that's the beauty of a 60-day trial is you can do something, and if it doesn't work, you can try something else. So thank you for your work, and look forward to seeing where we go on this next.
Councilor Murcia.
Yes, I just want to comment on Engineer Leahy's observation. I understand to go over, but I'm not too certain about going under. They're not gerbils. Well, they're not gerbils.
Stadium, they go underneath.
Jesus.
Go to Gillette Stadium.
Thank you,
Okay.
Councilors. Thank you, Ms. Allman, for being here to answer these important concerns. We now go to, well, that completes the motion response. Need a motion to accept and place them on file by Councilor Rourke, second by Councilor Robinson. All in favor, say aye. Opposed, say no. The ayes have it. Motion is carried.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilor Robinson.
can I please make a motion to bundle, what is it, 5-1, 5-2,
5-3.
5-3, please?
Second.
Excellent motion by Councilor Robinson, second by Councilor Murcia. I will read this and we can rebundle them, but we can take questions and answer on each one of them individually if the body wishes. 5.1, vote accept expend $10,000.
What is it?
Mass State Police Grant, LPD. 5.2, vote license agreement for shoe time overhanging sign. 5.3, vote license agreement for the Green Place overhanging sign. Any comments or questions?
Yeah.
Councilor Murcia?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. What type of a business is hanging a sign, the Green Place? What is that business?
Mr. Machado?
The Green Place. I looked. I can't figure it out.
Is that the shoe time? Is that the one?
No, not shoe time. It's called the Green Place. I don't know what type of business it is. Even from reading the vote, I have no clue. I don't mind them hanging a sign. I just don't know what it.
The Green Place overhang sign, the Green Place.
Looks like it's an art store.
Is it?
Sells art supplies.
Art supplies?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
No other comments. Motion to adopt by Councilor Scott, second by Councilor Rourke. Mr. Clerk, roll call, please.
Council Noon.
Yes.
Council Robinson.
Yes.
Council Rourke.
Yes.
Council Scott.
Yes.
Council Yem.
Yes.
Mayor Chow.
Yes.
Council Drinkwater.
Yes.
Council Getchia.
Yes.
Council Jenness.
Yes.
Council Leahy.
Yes.
Council Mercia.
Yes.
11 yeas.
The next items are the orders from the city manager. We'll start with 6.1, order 60-day trial. Wait for readings, Mr. Clerk. This is the 60-day trial in the City Council order pursuant to Chapter 266 of the Code of Ordinances, City of Lowell, Massachusetts, concerning Section 266-6 thereof entitled Temporary Experimental Regulations. Temporary traffic regulations are hereby implemented for a period of up to 60 days. Any comments or questions by any of the councilors? Hearing none, need a
Mr. Mayor.
Councilor Yam?
I just have a quick question regarding the Broadway and the Wilders. I was trying to figure out what section of Broadway we do on the trial of this. So if someone could, clarify that.
Mr. Machado?
Thank you.
It's around 800 Broadway.
I look it up, 800 Broadway. It's like at the corner where the South Campus UMass Lowell is, right? But is that where the Department of like Social Services or whatever, or is it on the library side, or is that where the parking lot? So I'm not exactly sure which side.
It's in front of the big red house. We're looking it up right now. It's a resident. It was a petition for a handicap placard.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, it is close to the university, but it's a big red. I don't know if it's a condo or apartment complex, but
Across the street from their parking lot.
Thank you.
Okay. Councilor Robinson?
Thank you. Real quick, what is, I haven't really seen this too often. What is it that initiated by DPW requests on Bartlett Street?
Mr. Manager?
Parking prohibited, certain streets at all times, initiated by DPW requests. Would that have to do with winter operations, or what is, I don't understand that.
Through Mr. Machado to Ms. Byers-Rose.
It was a request, sorry. It was a request from DPW because the trash trucks have been having difficulties taking that corner. And so they requested that we block it off for people to make sure that they're not parking there so they can take that turn. So after, there must have been multiple instances, and so they formally put that request in.
Excellent. Okay, thank you.
No other discussion. A motion to adopt by Councilor Scott, second by Councilor Nguyen. Mr. Clerk, roll call, please.
Council New.
Yes.
Council Robinson.
Yes.
Council Rourke.
Yes.
Council Scott.
Yes.
Council Yem.
Yes.
Mayor Chow.
Yes.
Council Drinkwater.
Yes.
Council Getchia.
Yes.
Council Janice.
Yes.
Council Leahy.
Yes.
Council Mercia.
Yes.
11 yeas.
The next item is Section 7, Resolution 7.1. Resolution establish sister city with Cork Island. Waive full reading and second reading by title. Mr. Clerk. In the City Council, resolution supporting and establishing a sister city relationship with Cork Island. Any discussions or comments with this? Get a motion to adopt by Councilor Leahy. Do you have a comment, Councilor?
Yeah, just one comment. When this gets drawn up, some of us use our middle initial when we sign it, so I don't know, the way it was drawn up this time, it just has our first and last name, so can you just check the, for consistency? So when we
sure.
sign it, like to put the middle initials back in. That's all. Thank you.
Through Mr. Assistant Manager, if the Solicitor's Office could maybe redraft the resolution for us with a name, some with full name, some with middle initials as well. And we'll get that out and then we'll sign it as soon as
I
possible.
just want it, when it goes down in history, I want people to know it was me, so.
And yeah, I think you want to let the public know that you are Irish,
Yes.
correct? Need a motion to adopt by Councilor Leahy, second by Councilor Getchia. Mr. Clerk, roll call, please.
Council New.
Yes.
Council Robinson.
Yes.
Council Rourke.
Yes.
Council Scott.
Yes.
Council Yem.
Yes.
Mayor Chow.
Yes.
Council Drinkwater.
Yes.
Council Getchia.
Yes.
Council Janice.
Yes.
Council Leahy.
Yes.
Council Mercia.
Yes.
11 yeas.
The next item is Section 8, Constable Bonds, 8.1. Communication, City Manager requests approval of Constable Bond for Jose Navarro. Any comments or questions on this? Councilor Yam?
Mr. Mayor, it's just, thank you, sir. For my own education, what is that, the constable and the bond? Are they working for the city or?
Mr. Machado?
I'm going to give that to the expert constable person, Austin Ball.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So a constable counselor is basically a quasi-police officer, although he's not a certified police officer, but he's allowed to serve warrants and basically any type of town meeting, he's an official document holder that will be able to certify these particular documents to this individual or an entity.
On behalf of the city of Lowell?
On behalf of the city, yes, that's correct.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other comments or questions? Need a motion to adopt by Councilor Drinkwater, second by Councilor Murcia. Mr. Clerk, roll call, please.
Council New.
Yes.
Council Robinson.
Yes.
Council Rourke.
Yes.
Council Scott.
Yes.
Council Yem.
Yes.
Mayor Chow.
Yes.
Council Drinkwater.
Yes.
Council Getchia.
Yes. Yes.
Council Janess.
Yes.
Council Leahy.
Yes.
Council Mercia.
Yes.
11 yeas.
The next line items, number 9, these are the reports. There are no subcommittee report. We go to 9.1, the wire inspection, National Grid request installation of handhold and underground conduit at Appleton and Guam Street. Any discussion on this one? Hearing none, need a motion to accept and adopt the accompanying order by Councilor Rourke, second by Councilor Leahy. All in favor say aye, opposed say no. The ayes have it.
Mr. Mayor,
Motion is carried. Councilor,
while on the subcommittees, can I schedule one for next Tuesday? Traffic.
I'm sorry?
A traffic subcommittee for next Tuesday, please.
Okay.
I'll pass along to the clerk the subject. It was from a couple meetings ago, couple different areas in the city.
Yeah. Mr. Clerk?
All right. Thank you.
5:38.
Great. Thank you.
The next section is the petitions. 10.1, claims for property damage. Any discussion on this? Hearing none, motion to refer to Law Department for report and recommendation by Councilor Robinson, second by Councilor Janess. All in favor say aye, opposed say no. The ayes have it. Motion is carried.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilor Robinson?
could I please make a motion to bundle 10.2, 10.3, 10.4?
Excellent motion, Councilor Robinson, to bundle 10.2, 3, and 4, second by Councilor Gishia. I'm going to briefly read them. You can discuss each one separately if you wish. 10.2, miscellaneous. Brandon Chuen requests installation of handicap parking sign on Market Street at 3 O'Brien Terrace. 10.3, miscellaneous. Maria Ortiz, for the benefit of Josephine Santos Centeno, requests installation of a handicap parking sign at 1360 Middlesex Street. 10.4, miscellaneous. Randy Sargent requests installation of handicap parking sign at corner of 7 Deerfield Street and Stratton Street. No discussion. Motion to refer to transportation engineer and report and recommendation by Councilor Robinson, second by Councilor Leahy. All in favor say aye, opposed say no. The ayes have it. Motion is carried. We already taken up 10.5. We now move on to the City Council motions. We'll start with 11.1. 11.1, Councilor Leahy, motion to reconsider. Councilor Drinkwater, Councilor Yam, to add language to Section 3J of the proposed ADU ordinance so that the section would apply with the adoption of the Home Rule petition, which mirrors Salem, Massachusetts, granting rate reductions and tax relief for the proposed unit. Second by Councilor Janess. Councilor Leahy.
Thank you. The motion basically speaks for itself. I wanted to reconsider the vote and retake the vote.
Any other comments or questions? No discussion.
You need a roll call on that motion to consider.
Good. Need a motion to reconsider. Mr. Clerk, roll call, please.
Council New.
Yes.
Council Robinson.
No.
Council Rourke.
Yes.
Council Scott.
No.
Council Yem.
Yes.
Mayor Chow.
Yes.
Council Drinkwater.
Yes.
Council Getchia.
No.
Council Janess.
Yes.
Council Leahy.
Yes.
Council Mercia.
No.
Motion passes. Now you're going to take up the motion.
Okay. Right. So now we're going to address the motion to reconsider. Second by, do we just discuss that?
Just read the language again, too.
Okay. Okay, the motion itself is Councilor Drinkwater, Councilor Yam, to add language to Section 3J of the proposed ADU ordinance so that the section would apply with the adoption of the Home Rule petition which mirrors Salem, Massachusetts, granting rate reductions and tax relief for the proposed unit. Councilor Drinkwater, Councilor Yam would like to speak again on this motion. Councilor Drinkwater.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just by way of explanation of the original motion, which was made on the floor 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago at the meeting, we were in receipt of an analysis by the city solicitor with respect to Section 3J of the redrafted ADU ordinance that was before us, with some, I guess you could say with an analysis that said that this particular section would run afoul of the state of Massachusetts prohibition on rent control. And it did give a couple of options for a path forward to be able to do this legally, one of which involved a home rule petition. I know this particular section that would limit the amount of rent that could be collected to 70% of fair market value was based upon language in the City of Salem's ordinance. And the City of Salem had advanced a home rule petition which successfully passed through the legislature about 9 months after they had filed it, which not only gave the city the authorization to limit the rent that could be collected, but part of the overall, I guess you could say, strategy was to also grant some relief in the form of property tax relief, not for the full value of the ADU, but for part of the value of the ADU for the owners who would essentially be limited in what they could collect. So the motion was to do two things. One was to advance a home rule petition which mirrored what had been done successfully in Salem and passed through the state legislature. And the second was just to add a line of clarification in the ordinance to state that that particular section would take effect upon the successful passage of the home rule petition, so that we would not be voting on an ordinance, on an ADU ordinance that would have language in there that was clearly, from what we're being advised, clearly in violation of the state's prohibition on rent control. So again, that was the intention of the original ordinance that was made on the floor a couple weeks ago. I know there was some confusion given that this motion had come from the floor, and glad we will have the opportunity to reconsider here tonight. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councilor Yams, maker of the motion, would you like to add any comments?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Like Councilor Drinkwater stated, it, we just insert that language that will prevent, will help this ADU ordinance move forward with the language to for the home rule petition, because as Mr. Solicitor noted that if we do not do that, we run afoul with the rent control. And after the 60 days passing without this specific language, it's become voluntarily the homeowner who rent at the 30% below market rental can come back from to the city for compensation of that 30%, and everyone will pay for that. So this just a safety to prevent that happen to all the resident taxpayer of the city of Lowell. And the other comment that I'd like to make is that please allow the law department to draft the home rule petition language, because whatever the council decide on the language may not pass the legislation that for the home rule petition language. So it's a precaution to allow the the law department working with the legislature to come up with the language that will be appropriate and will pass the home rule petition that the city eventually will file. Thank you.
Councilor Robinson?
Thank you. For the viewers at home, just please pay attention. You just heard long-winded nonsense. First of all, the solicitor's opinion was they don't know what the state's going to do, whether or not they would grant a home rule petition absent from burden shifting. And that's what this is. Again, pointed out the numbers that we talked about earlier based on the diagram provided by DPD. Now just be mindful of this. If it was a fifth of potential properties provided, just ballpark, that's 1,200 ADUs potentially could be built. Not saying they will, but it potentially could be built. Now, what this home rule petition, and when we voted and it was defeated, nothing's changed with any of this since that time. So a motion to reconsider means there was conversations made to try to sway somebody. That's the way, let's be honest there. Now, in addition to that, this home rule petition, the added components that my colleagues are so eloquently trying to speak about is what it's doing is it is burdening the non-ADU homeowners. So if you don't have an ADU, this home rule petition will shift the taxes that the people that build ADUs will not be forced to pay as a result of this. So let's be honest and at least be transparent to the people paying attention at home. Thank you.
Councilor Scott?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My only question that I have, and I brought it up before, is perhaps to the CFO, but residents that currently have multifamily homes that rent to friends, family members, neighbors for 70% of the AMI, you know, that they're trying to, you know, not increase the rates on these people, would they qualify if we move forward with something like this?
Through Mr. Machado to Mr. Baldwin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. For someone who's renting a multifamily unit who doesn't have like a deed restriction on the property, they would be ineligible for any kind of reduction. So at the moment, I can't think of a place where they'd be eligible for some kind of tax exemption. However, I'd be happy to do more research if that's helpful.
Okay. I just don't see it as really fair, like Councilor Robinson said, as far as being, you know, a tax shift to one group of people over another group of people that are also offering, you know, a lower price rent in the city. So I just won't support it. Thank you.
Councilor Drinkwater?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to respond to one point. Under this ordinance, if a home rule petition were to pass that granted the property tax relief in the form that Salem, Massachusetts did it, it would result in growth to the property tax base. This is not a way to subsidize anybody. Our budgets are built upon both growth and increases to the property tax rate. All growth takes away from what we have to do to the rate to be able to fund our budget year over year. So for a homeowner who invests their own money in building an ADU, their property tax value will go up in the following tax year. The way that this is formulated, they wouldn't be assessed on the full value of that because they're only able to charge 70% of the fair market value. But rest assured that if they build an ADU, their property tax assessment, what they pay in property taxes, will be higher in the following year under this proposal. Therefore, they will be contributing to new growth in the city, and therefore they will be putting less of a burden on the actual property tax rates. So I just want to make that clear. And with respect to how this would impact owners of other multifamily housing, as I see it, this is a section that's being added to the ADU ordinance, and it would apply to ADUs. But this council has considered a proposal that would grant property tax relief to landlords who would be willing to offer discounted rental prices to incentivize affordable housing costs. That motion was brought forward by Councilor Robinson in April. We received a response with various ways we could approach that issue, and we didn't receive this kind of pushback about that being unfair. If we want to apply the same sort of program to the owners of other types of rental housing in the city, we have a motion and a response that was brought before this council that would apply this to essentially all landlords, potentially, who are willing to offer their properties at below market value and grant property tax relief in return. We had this discussion just a matter of months ago. And that, though, would apply to, there's no owner occupancy requirement on those types of rental housing when it was brought up and discussed here. Those could be absentee, out-of-town landlords who, under what was brought up and discussed by this council, could be eligible for some sort of property tax relief in exchange for offering rentals at below market value. Now, I'm not weighing in at all on whether that is advisable or not. I just want to point out that for the sake of consistency, some of those who are criticizing this as some sort of unfair subsidy, which again, not a subsidy, will contribute more to the tax base, we're willing to entertain this same sort of proposal that could potentially offer property tax relief for those who don't reside on the actual properties that they're renting. So for the sake of consistency, I believe it's important to note that. And again, I just want to know for all the viewers at home, if you're being assessed more for your property in a particular tax year, it's impossible to say that anybody is subsidizing you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Mayor, I have to clarify something. Only in Lowell does growth not mean infrastructure increase. Only in Lowell. We hear these things, these made-up, fictionary things. When you put people in houses, it has no effect on anything, and it's actually a savings, only in Lowell. The infrastructure is important in this city. We're watching people's houses flood out right now because our sewers are capacity. If people read their packet and read that what happened at Gorham and Moore Street, where it was flooding over and a person drove through, I know CFO Baldwin had read this, a person drove through,
Yes.
and now the motor in their car
Yep.
no longer works because it's overflowing over there. I guess that doesn't mean, that's not a tax burden to anybody. Do not worry about it. I'm sorry, I didn't hear anyone speak. It is an infrastructure increase. We have a water treatment plant, we have wastewater that we don't even know the capacities of the sewer lines, we don't even know the flows of the sewer lines. So when we just say that, there is a demand that's going to come to the taxpayer, and they better be prepared. Our police force, we talk about migrants coming in, and do we have a school system that can even fit, I don't know, what is there? 300 families, this could increase way more than that. We're talking about all these things, but when it comes to ADUs, we don't need to talk about that because there's no increase in the little bit. So that's why we have tax bases set the way they do. So there is an offset when you start giving relief in areas and not assessing things at the way they should be. So there's police demand, there's fire demand, there's a lot of demand for services that come with anybody who comes here. So I just think when we start trying to tie in taxes and growth, and they're not, they're correlated, and let's be real. Councilor Robinson is not wrong. When you start looking at that, there are other areas that are affected. The city's a big piece of the pie. So when things happen, I wouldn't suggest doing any of this until we straighten out our sewer systems, where we have people in Belvedere floating away. We have people in South Lowell where they can't even get in and out of the roads over there. We have Lakeview Ave. We're pouring money in from ARPA trying to fix some of the sewer systems. We do have problems with growth in the city.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to the Assistant Acting City Manager, do we have an ordinance for in-law apartments on the books right now?
Mr. Machado?
We do not. There's nothing on the books, do we?
I think we do.
Through Mr. Machado to Ms. Byers-Rose.
People have the ability right now to, we don't regulate the number of like kitchens, bathrooms, bedrooms within a house. So if somebody wanted to, build out a portion of their house to have a parent or somebody in their family live in it, that would be acceptable, assuming they follow all appropriate permitting. The fundamental difference, though, is that there's no, they are not allowed to create like closed barriers. So they would have to have free access to the kind of space you built out and to the larger home. And the distinction in the ADU is that it becomes like a totally private residence and it can have its own entrance and egress. So fundamentally, that is the difference. But people are able in some locations to do that.
Right, so people are allowed to do that now. So when people say to me, how dare you not support ADUs and allow my parents to live on my property so that I can take care of them, that's actually false, because we have that on the books now where they have the opportunity to do that. So I don't know why we're making this fuss about ADUs. Are we doing this to make it easier for people? Because if we're making it easier for people, and once the parents are no longer alive, we're going to have different other people. Then I hear people say, well, there's so many homeless, we need these ADUs to get the homeless off the street. I want to know how many people are going to add on to their property and go to the South Common and take some of those people off the street. I want to know who they are, because I don't think they're going to want to do that. So they can say everything they want, but then I heard, I know how we can solve the homeless issue. Why don't we take the single-family homes and allow them to put people in their attic, people in their basement? Can you understand that? If they have cars and you're going to have them on the street? This is bizarre. I don't support this ADU principle here. I don't. I'm sorry.
Councilor Rourke.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So, I hear the concerns about water and police and services. We have a limit of 5 per district, so that's 40. So that's really not a concern. Also, this council, no questions came up when the old Gene Dock down the street was putting in dozens of units down there. Nobody had a question about water and services and things like that. This is a 1-year try to see if it's eligible and it could work for the city. If it comes back in a year and it's a disaster, there won't be one council that would probably support it going forward. The overall tax of an ADU will go up. The home and ADU, the taxes are going to go up much more than a single-family home that doesn't have an ADU. So, there is more money coming in, and when you look at the ordinance with the owner-occupied, the shared utilities, people can add a bathroom to their house right now, in a single-family home. They can do it in a 2-family home. They can add 2 bathrooms. So, I think we're trying to make a bigger deal out of this than it is. And again, Councilor Robinson a couple weeks ago asked for a review after 16 of them were done, or a year, which I think is a good thing. And obviously the amendment that was made for 40 max for the first course of the year and get a report back to see how it works, I think that makes a lot of sense too. So I would agree to a vote yes on this motion. Thank you.
Councilor Yam.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If I were to use the analogy by Councilor Kachir regarding let's wait until we have the sewer separation and all that done, so that means the acre crossing will have to be on hold. The 555 development, CBA development have to be on hold. Number 733, 735 Broadway, which is producing 53 affordable housing unit, will have to be on hold until all this done. So all of that will just have to, put stop. So just want to bring that. Number two, concern about, concern about always parking, it being used as a way to discourage. We have people move into the city of Lowell, they purchase new home, they coming in, they purchase a home, and there is no regulation stopping here. You can't move to Lowell because our street is overcrowded, so you can't move in. Some of the small home, 2-3 bedroom, you have family of 6, 7, 8, live together. There's no regulation or control. Multifamily unit have been sold in the city of Lowell, and no one really try to control. The landlord charge a regular rent for 2-bedroom now is $2,200, and we do not, regulate that. You cannot rent. You can only rent at 70% of the fair market rent. So that's just my comment and my concern. Thank you.
Councilor Robinson.
Thank you. Couple of things. When I brought the motion initially about offering a reduced rate to any landlords that voluntarily were willing to offer reduced rents, completely voluntary, they would have received a discount in the residential tax rate and what that looked like. That was wide open. That was for DPD and the administration to figure out what made sense if we were to go that direction. Something like this, they can sit there and say that it's not going to be impact and your price is going to go up because you added an ADU. Exactly. So you just outpriced the first-time home buyer on a single-family property potentially down the line because the price went up. It's being assessed higher because you added pretty much a single to a two-family, although we can't call it legally a two-family. It's a single-family with a rental property, a legalized rental property on the premise. There is going to be a real tax to services, form of inspectors. There's going to be a tax stormwater runoff due to the parking requirements. There's going to be additional heat islands when we've been talking about mitigating heat islands citywide. You added more parking. You added more non-permeable surface. I thought the benefit for a lot of these people that they've said time and time again is to keep loved ones at home. Isn't that a great benefit? Oh, no, wait a minute, that's not enough. We need to incentivize people to do this so they can keep loved ones at home. So take it a step further. And meanwhile, all the non-ADU owners, people that aren't eligible, you don't have a single family, you don't meet these requirements, your lot size is under 5,000, you can't build the ADU, but guess what? Your taxes are gonna go to offset what we're not charging for the bedrooms of the people that can do it. Makes sense, but yet the benefit of keeping a loved one at home is not enough. I mean, it's, if people were just honest and said, hey, we want to do ADUs, there's no need to mirror Salem to the T. Salem is Salem, Lowell is Lowell. We have plenty of residents that aren't really warm and fuzzy about ADUs, but now you're asking those same people that aren't even eligible to do ADUs, you're going to have to help offset the service expenses for the people that do ADUs. So now your neighbor is potentially could jam up your neighborhood with additional traffic because they built in a 2-bedroom ADU and we don't have enough parking over here. We're going to meet the requirement, but then any additional visitors or whatever will be on the street. And by the way, any service that is increased, I'm sorry, but you can't have an ADU, but you're going to offset that. So be realistic about it. I mean, you can try to spin it however you want. And I asked the question, what has changed since the last time we took a vote on this same motion? Nothing, except for a few phone calls. It's about all. Nothing else has changed. No new data has came out. There hasn't been a revelation from planning and development that came out and said, hey, by the way, we figured this out. It's none of that. It's the games have been played out the gate, and hey, it is what it is. I will not support this. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Chow. I think Councilor Yem should go to DPD and understand about by right building and actually projects like the Acre Crossing. Acre Crossing has engineering studies, Mr. Yem. Do you understand what that is? Okay, so they look at the sewer. You understand what that happens, right? Councilor Yem, if you want to take the shot and you understand actually what you're talking about, So by right means you don't need anything. You can build. When you're looking at acre crossing, you do understand all those studies were on your desk and you should have looked at them, right? And then when we look at review and trials, there's two different things. Councilor Rourke said it's a trial period. It's not. It's a review. That's what's in the piece. It's not a trial and after a year it goes away. It's a review. And it's just two different aspects. But when we start looking at by right building versus actual acre crossing and the amount of money that they spent, if you want to give them back their engineering money, we certainly can do that.
Move the question, please.
So by Councillor Rourke, a second by Councillor Janus. Before we do roll call, I would like to make a comment on this. Now we'll do a roll call this moment. I'm going to ask the Vice Chair to come to the podium so I could take on the council seat and to make a short comment.
The chair recognizes Mayor Chow.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. It's good to be down here to speak openly on this issue. And I just want to make a quick comment because as we have gone through this ADU process, we have had multiple meetings, multiple conversations. We have listened to the residents on all sides and the city councils on all sides and making amendments that was one of the most democratic process that we allow all the council to make the amendments and we vote them up and down. And at the end of all the amendments, we came to a very, very good amendments that was approved by the council. And I think a couple of the important ones are that this is going to be a one-year trial. And I believe, if I remember all the amendments, one of them was like we have 5 limits per year. So even though that we have the ADU map early on in a meeting, seems like it's a large numbers. But in reality, we are giving this a one-year trial. And even if those residents were to seek ADU with the 5 limit per year, it will still be a very, very small amount for a one-year trial. And as elected officials, we do listen to the public. We listen to the residents. We listen to stakeholders. And if things were not to go the way that the public or the city like to see it happen, as elected official, as a legislative body, we can always vote to change, to make any amendments that we want. And having that said, I want to address a couple key points. One is that it sounds to me, even from the residents that don't like ADU for all it was, the original ordinance, but they did say they would like to have some form of ADU. And then also, again, going back to amendments, we did curb a lot from both the residents and the elected officials. We can't have ADU at all costs. We need to curb it, we need to have guardrail and so forth. So now we have come to a day now that we are going to vote for the ADU to move forward with the reconsiderations of the motion. And one thing that comes up over and over again is that how does a resident benefit from having ADU built on their property benefit, and how that would have a negative impact on their neighbors. And the one thing that comes up over and over again is the tax implication. Councilor Drinkwater explained it in verbal form, in theory, that with the increase of the revenue, that the tax of the property tax, it would increase the tax base for the city. And also it would not affect the other residents in the city. That in theory is great for a lot of us to understand cerebrally, academically, but now I want to take a couple minutes to ask the CFO, how does that really work in terms of numbers? Let's break it down in terms of numbers. And I believe I've seen some numbers somewhere. When an ADU is built, when you build a kitchen, it adds so many thousands of dollars to the value of the property. If you add a bathroom, it adds some value to the property. So, I don't know what the average single family is right now. I would say maybe 350,000 to 400,000. But just for the sake of numbers, for easy calculation here for the council and for the public, let's say it's $400,000. And I believe that if you have the addition of bathrooms and kitchen, Mr. CFO, what is the total addition through Mr. Vice Mayor to the CFO? What is the actual dollar amount added to the value of the property?
CFO Baldwin.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. So we did have an opportunity, the chief assessor and I, to speak with the assessor in Salem, and the assessor isn't able to join us this evening, but she is the subject matter expert and can, during the public hearing on the ordinance, can certainly provide more information. But in general, the average single-family home value in Lowell for FY23 is $409,690. So the average single-family tax bill is just over $5,000. It's $5,088. And in reviewing the special legislation that Salem was granted, the exemption that they offer to get for ADUs offered at 70% of the FMR, they reduce it by the approximate value of a kitchen and a bathroom. So that's in Lowell, according to the assessor, about $15,000 for a kitchen, $4,200 for a bathroom. So to add that on to the value, and I know I'm throwing a lot of numbers out here, that would result in a new value of $428,890. So the new tax on that property would be $5,326.81. That's an increase in tax of $238.81. Now that's ignoring any increase resulting from sales or other market forces that occur year to year. So there would be an increase in value related to an addition, the same way there would be if individuals build porches on their house or make other improvements to their property. It will increase the value to the home, which will increase the tax. And so if there is a tax exemption granted via this special legislation, the assessor would reduce the value by the amount, and the tax would be reduced commensurate with the reduction in value.
And so there is a gain in the property value and then the tax assessment of the property value. And with the, let's say if there were to be a subsidy on building this ADU, it's reduced by how much in dollar value again to that property?
Mr. Mayor, can we move the motion as was presented?
No,
I thought you had a statement you were going to state.
We talked about, I do have, I gave all the council member opportunity.
I know you did,
to
but
make
Councilor Rourke had
comments
moved
and
the
questions.
motion.
And now you are denying me to.
I'm not
put some
denying you, I'm
simple,
just telling you the proceedings that
simple,
we gave you a minute, but
questions and answers for the public can understand, Mr. Vice Mayor.
if it's up to the board, it's up to the body. If they want to overrule, he has a motion on the floor to move the motion. So if the body wants to, or the maker of the motion wants to pull it, then.
So
that
I
would give-
understand, Mr. Vice Mayor. So in situations where I like to get the answers, the public will understand. So my last question is, if you allow me, Mr. Vice Mayor, to the CFO, just one last question. Is there a tax burden to the people, to the residents of the city who are not pursuing ADU because a resident or their neighbor is building ADU, building a bathroom, building a kitchen? Is there any situation, if the property value go up, if the tax assessment go up, is there any incident that the neighbors, the residents of the city, would bear the burden of the tax that would be carried by the ADU property owner?
CFO Baldwin.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. There would be no impact to the levy based on that because of the equal amount of increase to the value, the total value in the city.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor, for the opportunity to ask that questions. And I thought I had the same rights as all the councilors to ask questions, to get answers. Apparently I don't, but I will take my podium back.
You absolutely do. Under
move
Robert's
the
rules,
vote.
he had the floor.
Must be the chair, Mr. Vice Mayor.
I would agree, Councilor Rourke.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair, for taking my place at the podium. And it's, as you can see, democracy at work. We are able to exchange our sentiments, our comments, our passions for what we believe in. With that said, motion on the floor by Councillor Rourke to move. That was seconded by Councillor Janess. Mr. Clerk, roll call, please.
Roll call is on the reconsidered motion from Councilor Drinkwater, seconded by Councilor Yem. Councilor Noon.
Yes.
Councilor Robinson.
No.
Councilor Rourke.
Yes.
Councilor Scott.
No.
Councilor Yem.
Yes.
Mayor Chow.
Yes.
Councilor Drinkwater.
Yes.
Councilor Getchia.
No.
Councilor Janess.
Yes.
Councilor Leahy.
Yes.
Councilor Mercier.
No.
7-4 passes.
Thank you. We now move on to the next motion on the agenda, 11.2. Motion by Councilor Leahy, request City Manager take a look at the organizational chart of the DPW, second by Councilor Scott. Councilor Leahy.
Thank you. This motion I had actually filed a couple of years ago also, and I'm just asking that we, now that we have new players in charge, let's take another look at it. I feel like the DPW commissioner is really doing a lot. He's going above and beyond, and I just want to make sure the support team under him is there, and we're running as efficiently as we can, and just to make sure we get the most, bang for our buck. So that's the gist of the motion. Thank you.
No other comments. On favor say aye, opposed say no. The ayes have it. Motion's carried. The next motion is 11.3. A motion by Councilor Leahy, request City Manager provide report to the City Council regarding the double poles throughout the city. Second by.
Second.
I believe it sounds like Councilor Gishia. No, that was Councilor Janess. Councilor Leahy.
Thank you. Through you to the Assistant City Manager again. So I understand the process. I think it's 90 days per utility, right? That they get notified once someone's done taking off their prospective wires off these double poles. So Moore Street has been going on since Manager Murphy, so that's got to be 6 years. There's a pole on my street that's been there for a year now, and then numerous other poles around the city. So what I'm asking is, and when you call up and try to do research on this, it goes back and forth. I know it's National Grid. Who's next? Comcast, us, then Verizon. I'm not sure exactly, but the point being, we're not following up on this. So either we start suspending services again like we did before, not allowing Comcast or National Grid or Verizon to do whatever they want to do across the city until they get these poles out. It's not fair. Moore Street, I think it's, well, the other street across from the old Sacred Heart, there's one on my street, there's numerous ones around. It's not as bad as it was maybe 10 years ago or 8 years ago, for sure. But it's not fair that these poles, it's littering our streets.
Mr.
And
Machado?
we need to get these out and have a more efficient program to getting these double poles out. And whatever that is, we're counting on you to get the job done. Thank you.
Mr. Machado, do you want to briefly make comment?
So that is the problem, is that it's these different companies that are on the poles. They don't really talk to each other. And the other problem is that we replace a double pole, there's a car accident, there's another double pole somewhere else. But we have been better. I've been in talks with Curtis Davis at National Grid, and he's helped out with communicating with the other lines. But the problem is that there'll be a fire line. AT&T still has lines out there, and it's different companies that have the property goes on their poles, and it's just it's a long process. It's not as easy as just saying get rid of this. It's you got to contact 5 different companies, but we will work on it and answer the motion.
Okay, but again, you know, maybe within a 100-mile radius of Lowell, I do not see this problem in any other city, so I don't know what they're gonna tell you for an answer. But all these other towns and cities that I drive through, I don't see it like here in Lowell. And it's, again, we have to put our foot down and say, we're not gonna take this anymore. You know, I mean, we all know that Moore Street, that was part of a negotiation deal for something. I can't remember exactly what it was, and it was never done. So that's gotta be, like I said, 6 or 7 years over there. So we have to do more than ask this time. We have to tell them we want them out of there. Thank you.
Councillor Scott?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I would just like to commend Councilor Leahy for his diligence in pushing this issue. Unfortunately, it still persists. Moore Street is, you know, mentioned by many residents in the area when I've been out and about knocking. They're concerned that the poles are still there, and also that a lot of the poles are now leaning. A lot of the double poles are now leaning as well. Some of them made jokes that, you know, it's going to come down one way or the other finally. You know, so this is something we need to go back and possibly look at not approving projects like was done in years past when they just did not take care of this issue. It's just, like I said, the conversation can't keep happening. The same motion can't keep coming up over and over again. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Hearing none, all in favor say aye, opposed say no. The ayes have it, motion's carried. The next motion is 11.4, a motion by Councillor Gishia, request city manager look into closing City Hall at noontime on Halloween.
Mr. Mayor, before I get a
Councilor
second,
Kishia?
can I amend the motion before we get a second?
Absolutely.
on it? I'd like the motion to be amended to read, request the city manager look into closing City Hall early on Halloween.
Okay, motion by Councillor Gishia has been amended, Mr. Clerk. Second by Councillor Yam. Councillor Gishia.
Motion speaks for itself.
Thank you, Councillor. Any discussion? Councillor Scott?
Just to clarify for you know, residents, what is the closing time right now on Tuesdays, City Hall? It's the late night, so this definitely makes sense. So, and I support it. Thank you.
Excellent. All in favor say aye, opposed say no. The ayes have it, motion is carried. The next motion is 11.5. Councillor Gishia requests city manager provide the city council with an outline on the maintenance plans for the new overpass landscaping. Second by Councillor Janess. Councillor Gishia.
Thank you, Mayor Chow. Through you to Assistant City Manager Machado. When we do major projects like this, they come with maintenance plans. That area is overgrown. It's starting to look bad already, and we're not even remotely done. And maybe they didn't even hand over the project yet to the city. If they haven't handed it over yet, can we please get them to maintain it? But I'm just wondering, going forward, what is the maintenance plan for that area? And did we plant the right type of plants so that we can actually maintain it? And should we look at a change now before we can't maintain what they have? So that's really what the purpose of the motion is. And if it hasn't been given over to the city, can we please get them to do their job and maintain that area? Thank you.
Mr. Machado?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So that they're responsible for the maintenance of 2 years, I believe. And we'll get somebody out there to take a look at the overgrowth that's there.
No other comments or questions? All in favor say aye, opposed say no. The ayes have it, motion is carried. We already have taken up 11.6. Now we take up 11.7. Motion by Councillor Nguyen, request city manager convene a task force to prepare the logistics of housing, feeding, and assisting with daily living needs of incoming migrants. Second by Councillor Yam. Councillor Nguyen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, the last time I heard that the ICC is going to be used for the migrant, and they are coming. So they are coming. City of Lowell is the parent of all the agency, basically. So I want to see if we can convene all service providers, such as from social service, from community health, from school, from other various departments or agencies that do service, including the WISH project, because they're going to come, they're going to need all those things, and and we have done this before as a city, they're going to need all that, and we don't want them to get here and then we're running around and said who do what. So convene the meeting beforehand, certainly have the dialogue among agencies that do provide various service, and so City of Lowell will be a coordinator of all this program out there to help the migrant. At the same time, we need to find out what state and federal is going to put in, because this is going to impact the City of Lowell. We want to know what the state is going to do in terms of resource to the city, as well as the federal. So all of that need to be in place as soon as possible, because they are coming, from what I heard. So that's why I filed the motion, because there's a need to have a discussion among all the service providers before the migrant get here.
Any other comments, discussion on this motion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye, opposed say no. The ayes have it, motion is carried. The next motion, 11.8, we have taken that already. The following one is 11.9, Councilor Nguyen requests City Manager work with the delegation, MCC, UMass Lowell, and the Governor's Office to make a plan for the Inn and Conference Center when it is no longer needed for housing migrants. Second by Councilor Janess. Councilor Nguyen.
Mr. Mayor, can you also do your motion 1112? They're very similar.
11.12. Motion by Councilor Rourke to just a bundle with 11.12. My motion requests City Manager, that was second by Councilor Robinson, request City Manager provide the City Council with a report regarding the migrant occupation of the UMass Lowell Inn and Conference Center. Councilor Nguyen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, just recently, actually, we saw the op-ed by Middlesex Community College President Sisson, who's expressed interest and welcomed the opportunity to discuss not just short-term, as I mentioned earlier, because the use of ICC is for only short-term. What's going to happen to ICC in long-term? Because really, it's going to impact the city tremendously in terms of what will happen, not just in the short term, in the long term, for economic purpose. Because we use ICC for function, for event and whatnot. So, in places like Low Auditorium, a place like Zonkers Arena, use auditorium for function, for stayovers and stuff. So, as in the form of hotels and stuff. So, let's have that conversation as well, because the sooner we have that conversation, the better, so that we know what happened, what's going to take place in that place after the migrant leave Lowell or relocate in the city.
Any other comments or questions on these two motions? My motion is very similar, may focus more on the short term, as far as the recent updates from the governor's office on if we can get like when they will be arriving, and just as the previous mentions had indicated, more short term and working towards long term, as Councilor Nguyen's motion indicated as well. Any other comments or questions on these two motions? All in favor say aye, opposed say no. The ayes have it, motion is carried. The next motion is 11.10. Councilor Janess and Councilor Scott request City Manager investigate improvements to the lighting at the Linden Street car condo. Who would like to go first? Councilor Janess, you've been volunteer.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This was a topic of discussion at the Back Central neighborhood meeting on Thursday. Councilor Scott and I were present, and Dina Coach said that she was having trouble getting the spaces in the car condo rented because people didn't feel safe parking there and then walking back. Lighting was something that we talked about as a possible way to address this. One thing that came up is the idea of using purple lights. Apparently purple lights have some effect by which it makes it very difficult for someone to inject intravenous drugs because they can't find their veins. And that was a cause of concern, I guess, that there has been some significant drug use in the car condo area, which is leading people to not park there. So this was just something that they asked if we could look into it, and I said I'd make the motion and ask you guys to take a look. So thank you very much.
Councillor Scott?
No, thank you. That was a very good summary of it. Thanks.
No other discussions. All in favor, say aye. Opposed, say no. The ayes have it. Motion is carried. The last motion of the evening is 11.11. It's my motion to request the city manager provide a report regarding FEMA and local emergency response plans to natural disasters. Second by Councillor Leahy. Thank you, Councillor. And the motion speaks for itself with the recent drastic climate and weather change in the city. Be good for us to know how the city plans to engage in all these disasters. Any other discussions? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Opposed, say no. The ayes have it. Motion is carried. We do not need to go into the executive session. Councillor Gishi already made a motion passed that the executive session minutes will be released. Any announcements? Councillor Jenness?
Thank you. I would just like to give Councillor Gitcher the MVP award for that motion to cancel the executive session.
Any, Mr. Machado?
Just, we're continuing the outdoor music series, the Busker series at Derby Park and Palmer and Middle, and also 262 Merrimack Street. And this weekend, Saturday and Sunday, the Health and Wellness series continuing at Boarding House Park from 9 to 11.
Any other announcements? Hearing none, need a motion to adjourn by Councillor Robinson, second by Councillor Scott. All in favor say aye. Opposed say no. The ayes have it. Motion is carried. Thank you, everyone, for watching tonight. Have a great evening.